All right, everybody, welcome into the high noon edition of Pugs Moran Live, the first of two streams that we do each and every day here. We do this one. This one's all about breaking news. Boy, do we have some breaking news. This one's about breaking news. We do all the things that are trending on a typical day. We'll tell you what all is happening, anything that's trending, headlines that are being made, trending topics underneath the social platforms. We give you everything that you need to know about what the hell is going on in this crazy, mixed up, mad world of ours. And so that's every Monday through Friday from noon until whenever we get done with it all. Mostly, I can promise you 2 hours. Sometimes we go a little bit more than that. Also, let's see here. We do a second stream each and every night. I shouldn't say that. I shouldn't say each and every night because we do a second stream. That's the Pillow Talk edition. That's Pugs and Parker. James Parker joins me, and it's a lot less formatted, I suppose you can say. There really is no purpose for that show other than he and I just sitting around talking, working on the chemistry, working out the kinks, seeing if we can actually, do something that sounds decent. Hold on, I'm working on some stuff. Okay, so normally we would start the show out with running down what today is, all the events in history, birthdays, people who died, just kind of giving you an overview of what today has been throughout history. But we can't do that today. We've got some big breaking news that we're monitoring here. All right, so first let me tell you this, okay? Today's show might be different in a couple of different ways. Those of you who join us every day here for the show, first of all, it's a holiday, so people are outside of their normal schedules. So, I don't expect us to have, the normal sort of give and take in the chat room. But if you do want to join into the chat room, please do mix it up. Hi, Leslie. There's Leslie. There's major historical events happening right now as we speak. So that's going to kind of trump everything, right? So that's one big difference about what today is. The other big difference is it's a school holiday and I have my kid. And although at the moment my kid is inside a virtual reality helmet in the other room. Hi, Leslie. We are number one with Leslie's. They're all here. My kid is trapped inside a virtual reality helmet at the moment, so he's fine. But here's the problem. I've told you time and time again about this completely insane animal that we have that lives here on the grounds of the 1%er compound in beautiful sunny Highland Park, Texas. That's CeeLo the dog. CeeLo is out of her mind, and CeeLo is a very mean dog, except with the people that she likes. Luckily, my kid is one of the people that she likes. But she doesn't like when he wears the VR helmet, because if you're familiar with how virtual reality works, you kind of stand alone in the room and you put the helmet on and then you just do all kinds of things and the dog goes nuts. Now, the dog going nuts because the kid is, inside the VR helmet causes the kid to lose his place in whatever game he's playing or to be distracted with the people that he's interacting with. He's playing with a bunch of his friends, or so he says. I don't know. It could be like, who knows? So the dog is going to bother him. So that means at some point he's going to come barging in on the show, dragging the dog by the collar and say, get rid of him. And then the dog is going to be in here. Now, typically the dog isn't here when I do the show, and she lays in her little bed on the floor there in the bedroom, and she's very calm and she waits until I'm done. And then she's actually good about that. And then she goes a little bit nuts, but that ain't going to happen because she knows the kid's in the other house. So when he drags the dog over here, the dog's going to go nuts in here, and that's going to, please. So I don't know that I can promise you the full 2 hours, and I certainly can't promise you that we'll get into all of the sorts of things that we typically do because, folks, I have been all weekend long. I have been steeped in watching and consuming and trying to keep up with all of the shifting narratives from both sides. I'm talking about what is, a lot of people are saying the outbreak of World War III. You say that all the time. People always say that. I don't know that this is the outbreak of World War III, but I do know that this is the most significant military event that I think that that any of us have ever witnessed. I mean, there are very smart people who study these things who say that this is the most impactful event since the end of World War II. Now, that might be, you're a white guy. It's because it's happening to white people in white Europe. Well, that may be the case. But it also has to do with Europe. It has to do with the balance of Europe. It has to do with the safety and security of Europe. And, look, it's Putin. Putin's involved in this whole thing, and he is a wild card. So hold on. Give me 1 second. I'll give you a backup. Okay, so that's still the Security Council meeting. So let me tell you about what's happening here. So Ukraine, which is an independent sovereign state, Ukraine historically was a part of the Soviet Union. Here's okay. So here, this is how I would probably oversimplify this. Actually, this is how I explained it to my kid, because we've been watching this coverage all weekend long. So imagine Ukraine is the daughter and Russia is the mom and dad, right? So they raise their daughter. Their daughter's a part of their family, always been a part of the family. And then the daughter turns 18, becomes an adult, moves out of the house and goes off to college. And then, I don't know, comes back for Thanksgiving or whatever with all of these crazy ideas that mom and dad don't like anymore. But see, Ukraine's a beautiful young 18-year-old girl. She's got big plans for her life. And notice I said her life. She wants to live her life. She is now an independent, sovereign young woman. And the parents, Russia, they're like, enough is enough. That is it. You are not going. Also, here's the other problem. Ukraine is now dating this guy. They're just dating. They're not serious. They're not married. They're not in like a real serious relationship. But Ukraine is dating this guy named NATO. And he is filling Ukraine's head with all kinds of dreams and possibilities and what Ukraine can become. And at this point, the father or mother Russia is dropping the hammer. They're saying, absolutely not. This has gone far enough, young lady. And she's like, but I'm 18. I'm a grown adult. And, parents are like not really acknowledging that. They're not really giving in. So that's basically what's happening. Putin wants Ukraine back in the fold. Putin has been promising for decades that he was going to restore Russia to the former glory of the Soviet Union. And what that means is one by one, he's going to try and retake, theoretically, all the former Soviet states. But as I said, Ukraine, a couple of years ago, they had an election in 2019, and they elected this guy named Zelensky, Volodymyr Zelensky. Okay. Now he was not the handpicked choice of the Kremlin. The Kremlin tried to, put a guy forward in the election that would be less friendly to the Western world, us, less friendly to Europe, his neighbors, and more in line with the Russian way, a puppet state, essentially. Well, that guy got his ass kicked. That guy, the guy that Putin put up for president, who everyone assumed was going to win, got his ass kicked because, as it turns out, the people of the Ukraine actually want to be Westernized. They actually want to be welcomed into Europe. They want to join NATO, which is a coalition of, different nations that are dedicated to the, theoretically, and in the beginning, they were dedicated to the peace in Europe. But NATO, as we've learned over the years, they now go everywhere, Middle East, wherever. If it's Europe adjacent, they'll send NATO troops in. So, and by the way, Zelensky, for those of you who don't know, this guy is super Western in his mind. He is a former TV star and comedian. That's what he was like, the biggest star on Ukrainian TV. It'd be like if the United States of America elected Jerry Seinfeld, to be the president. And Zelensky had a TV show called Man of the People or Head of State. Which was it? I don't know. I've seen a couple of different English translations of what the name is, but it's something like that. And in the TV show, Volodymyr Zelensky, the actor comedian, portrayed the president of Ukraine. And it was a very popular show and everybody liked him. It'd be kind of like if, Martin Sheen had run for president of the United States after the West Wing, right? And then people were like, well, I liked him as the president. So that's where Zelensky comes from. Zelensky is not a puppet of Putin. And, so he can't control him. And there's a whole bunch of stuff we'll go into. If there is any suggestion that this isn't that Putin doesn't want war, doesn't want to conquer Ukraine and bring them back into the fold. All you need to do is go look at an article, a manifesto, really, that Vladimir Putin wrote and made public in Russia back in July of this past year, where he goes on and on and on about how he's going to recapture it. And at the time, people were like, "Oh, that's just him blowing smoke." Putin is losing favor with the rank and file individuals on the street in Russia, and he knows that a way to get them back on his side is to give them promises of grandeur, promises of returning Russia to the former empire that it was. And so that's how it was dismissed. But now it's looking like he is absolutely 100% coming through on that. Now let me check again. I've been crazy, folks. I have actually been monitoring. Is he speaking yet? Oh, this woman is a piece of garbage. I have been monitoring. Grandma bought her son a new Android TV. Or her grandson. Grandma bought her grandson a new Android TV. And so I have basically absconded with it this whole weekend. I've got it set up in my little office area where I like to put all the show together and all that. You mean the bedroom? Yeah, the bedroom. Yeah, come on. It's a guest house. It doesn't have like a wing where I can do my office work. But I've been using the new Android TV. And my God, you guys, I was worried. I was like, how am I going to be able to get news with the new Android TV? There are like a million news apps from all around the world. And I've probably got 50 news and information apps loaded up on this new Android TV. So I have not only been watching American coverage. Actually, I would tell you that I have not been watching much American coverage. I've not tuned into Fox News once. I have not tuned into MSNBC once. I've got CNN on briefly. But the bulk of my news, I have decided, is coming from GB, with GBN, which is Great Britain News, which is it seems a little bit lighter, but they've been covering this well. And Sky News has been covering this real well, as well as there's a German news, Deutsch News, that I've been watching. That's another one where I've been the English version of that I've been watching. But also I've been watching Russian news services. And I will tell you, the Russian news, which is all 100% Kremlin controlled, the Russian news services are, man, they are putting out a narrative on this whole situation that is absolutely it's complete. It's a 180 from what the entire rest of the world is saying. And that's the reason that I've been looking into all of these other news sources, because I don't just want what is CNN saying, what is CNN's military experts saying. I want to know what the German military experts are saying. I want to know what the Brits are saying. I want to know what the rest of Europe is saying about this, since we're talking about what could be a major war, a major land grab in Europe, the largest that's been seen since the end of World War II. So the narrative that the Russians are putting out there, this is what you have. And again, pretext for war. Putin can't just roll his tanks in. And it should be noted that 3/4 of Russia's conventional military is now amassed along the borders of the Ukraine, from Belarus all the way down to Russia-controlled Crimea. They're there. They've been there. So we've got the satellite pictures. In the age of social media, we've got reporters from all around the world posting real-time videos of tanks rolling through fields, pulling right up to the border, sitting right at the official checkpoint where the roads are. So it has been building since Friday night, and here we are. It is now 8:16 p.m. in Kiev. I'm sorry. I'm going to pronounce it Kiev now, because I learned the difference between Kiev and Kyiv. I'm going to be pronouncing it Kyiv. It is 8:16 p.m. in Kyiv. It is 9:16 p.m. in Moscow. And Vladimir Putin is supposed to have started speaking 16 minutes ago, but he hasn't. He's going to address his nation, and this is believed to be the go orders, if you will. Putin telling his country that we are going for it. Oh, by the way, we had some discussion. You mean you talking to yourself and the people in the chat room? The one-sided conversation? Yes, that's what I've been talking. There's been some discussion about why people are suddenly pronouncing what had always been the city of Kiev as Kyiv now. Everybody's calling it Kyiv. And it's a different spelling too. Kyiv is spelled Kyiv and Kiev is spelled Kiev. So why the change? Well, I actually learned why the change is. Isn't this a fun fact about this whole thing? Kiev, with the spelling Kiev, is how Russia calls that city. Russia, the Russian people, the Soviets, that's why it's been the Soviet Union until the 1990s. So we called it what the Russians wanted to call it. It was called Kiev, Kiev. That's the Russian pronunciation and spelling. The Ukrainian people, however, they call it Kyiv. They call it Kyiv. It's a totally different pronunciation and a different spelling. So the reason that we are seeing people suddenly not referring to this city as Kiev, but referring to it as Kyiv, is because that's what the people who live there call it. That's what it's called. We're not calling it what the apparent aggressors want it to be called anymore. So there you go. So that was something that had confused me for quite some time until I did a deep dive on all this weekend. Okay, so what do we need to know about what has changed today? This morning, about 8 hours ago now, Putin got all of his, what would be his version of his National Security Council, his Joint Chiefs of Staff, and his cabinet together. And I don't know, you probably haven't seen video of it, but I've been watching video of this. It was a clown show. It was all of Putin's hand-picked lackeys coming together, and Putin sitting at a big desk, and then them all sitting in chairs in front of him. And one by one, his hand-picked council stood up and started ranting about why Russia must conquer Ukraine, why this is in the best interest of the Russian people. And the whole time, this was a charade. The entire time, Putin is sitting there nodding like, okay, very interesting. I'm taking my experts' views into consideration here, which is bullshit, because we know, based on Putin's manifesto from last July, he's already made up his mind. We know what he wants to do. But it was very interesting to see how, I mean, if you think our government is corrupt, and there may be something to that, not like it is there. I mean, these lackeys, one by one, stood up and started putting forth all of these narratives that I said were being tossed out into the ether by Russian media. Narratives like the war has already started and that the Ukraine army has been pounding the good citizens, the good Russian wannabe citizens of Donetsk and Luhansk. These pronunciations are difficult for me. They're saying that there is a genocide of anyone holding a Russian passport going on in eastern Ukraine. That's the area referred to as Donbas, the Donbas region. And that's the area that is closest to Crimea, the area that Putin and his people just went in and took back in 2014. And in 2014, when this went down, the rest of the world was like, all right, you know what? It's just a little piece. We're going to let them have it. The government of the Ukraine is pro-Putin anyway, for the most part. So let's just not start a whole thing. If this is what they want, this is what they want. Well, that's all changed, as I said, since 2019. Now there is a new government in charge, a new government that wants to be a Western-friendly nation. And he was theoretically, Zelensky, democratically elected by the people, who came out in droves to support him in this election, even though the Kremlin was doing everything that they could to get their puppet back in charge. So in 2014, it was like a Kremlin-friendly government in the Ukraine. And there was no reason. There was no reason for the West to really say, okay, fine, if this is what you guys want, this is what you want. So they took Crimea with almost no pushback from the West. But now we're in different times. And now they've got their eyes set on this particular. Now they're saying that the reason for the incursion will be the genocide of Russian people holding Russian passports in the Donbas. But as we've learned, actually, I learned this from German TV, and then a couple hours later, I heard it echoed on American TV. The Russian government, since 2014, since they took the Crimea, has been going into the city of Donetsk, knocking on doors and just giving people Russian passports. Just saying, hey, you want a Russian passport? And they're like, okay. So now Russia is claiming that these are all Russian citizens because they hold Russian passports. They were just given these things, half the people, whatever. I get that's a totally different discussion. So Putin had this big meeting, the Security Council meeting this morning, and at the end of it, he declared that he would be making a decision. Okay. At the end of the meeting, I'm sorry, I'm watching the headlines because this is all breaking as we're talking here. So he declared that he would be making a decision on what to do next as far as the troops that are built up on the borders with Ukraine today. Now, what we're waiting on now is for him to address the nation. Putin is going in front of the nation. He was supposed to do this 24 minutes ago now, 9 o'clock Russia time, 9 p.m., going on TV, talking to the whole country, and he's going to tell the decision. Am I going in? And if I'm going in, here's why. There is a genocide occurring in the Donbas, and it's the Ukrainian army who is doing all of this, which would be absolutely insane because they weren't claiming this a week ago, right? So this is now going on almost 5 weeks since the Russian military began surrounding the entire nation of Ukraine. So let me ask you this. Does it make any sense to you at all that the Ukrainian military, who hadn't been accused of any of these things 5 weeks ago, would take a look at their borders, see the largest mobilization of Russian troops since World War II, and go, now's a good time to start a fight with them since they're all in position? Of course, it makes no sense. This is what conspiracy theorists in the United States like to call a false flag. Putin is looking for a reason to justify him taking over the entirety of Ukraine. And he's going to use the situation that he has wholly concocted in the Donbas as the reason for going in. Now, remember, this is the daughter. Ukraine is the daughter who went away to college and is dating a guy named NATO. And he's filling her head with all kinds of ideas about what she can be and how she's an adult now and she can make her own decisions. And the parents don't like it. So the reason for this, and again, this is the other thing people are saying, if it's really just all about the Donbas region, then why has Russian troops been occupying the border all the way from Belarus in the north, the entire length of the border of Ukraine, all the way down into Crimea? If the intention is just to take this sliver, the Donbas, then why does he have troops spread hundreds and hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of miles throughout? No, his intention is to take the entire country. And that's what the rest of Europe is looking at right now. Now, Ukraine is not a NATO member. Ukraine is not. We would like Ukraine to be a NATO member because, hey, the bigger the ranks, right? And what a strategic location they are. NATO was essentially created to keep the Soviet Union in check. And now we've got somebody right on the border there that wants to be a NATO member. Belarus ain't. Belarus don't want none of that smoke. Belarus is a puppet government of Putin. So that's essentially what this is all about. Putin is afraid that his daughter is going to get engaged to NATO. And he is, at this moment, he is putting his fist down and he is saying no. There have been all kinds of horrible stories going out there, like a supposed list to be arrested and executed. The president of Ukraine is at the top, plus everybody in his cabinet. I mean, there's just really some dark shit going on. And again, we're still waiting to see what Putin is doing. Let's check in here for a second. Let's see what I'll show you what I'm monitoring here. This is Yeah. The only people that I'm pretty sure is going to be carrying Putin is RT. So I've been watching. Putin will decide on recognizing Donbas independence within hours. There is nothing credible to suggest that the Donbas region actually wants to be independent, other than Putin saying they all have passports, which they were handed out free of charge by Russian agents over the past 8 years, or was 2014, 6. So yeah, so 8 years. When he speaks, I don't even know that we're gonna watch it. I'll have it on a different monitor here. I don't even think it'll be in English. I mean, although, wait a second. This guy, these RT people are something else, boy.
Grisly incident, tragic, happened here, just west of Donetsk city. 2 shells launched from the Ukrainian side made impact. One there, another crater here, and everywhere here you'll see bloodied bits of clothing. This is a miner's outfit. He was on his way to a mine shaft where he works. This is one of the 2 shells that landed here. Again, we aren't going to spend very long here because there are still
very dangerous for Russians. Very dangerous for 3/4 of the Russian military. Close. All right, so do you see? That's basically what's been put out by RT, which is the it's a wholly controlled Kremlin news service. This is the English version. They put out an English version for propaganda purposes. Actually, I don't think they put out an English version. I think that that's all there is. I think that the entire structure of RT is designed to be a propaganda wing for what, the Kremlin wants. But you see that. Okay, so that's an RT reporter who is talking about how awful the Ukrainian military is right now, how they're just shelling and they're destroying. I mean, it's not happening. It's not happening. All the rest of the world is saying the Ukrainian military isn't even mobilized at this point. There are defense forces. There are citizens of the Ukraine who over the past couple of weeks have suddenly been mustered and they've been given guns and they're training and all that. But what Russia is doing there, what we just saw with RT, is an example of how they're trying to drum up a situation that just isn't existing. They're trying to create a situation that says that the fine Russian passport-holding citizens of the Donbas region are being slaughtered in a genocide by Ukrainian troops. And if that were true, it would be an absolutely viable justification for sending in Russian troops to defend these people. It would be a humanitarian disaster. We would probably see the UN get involved at that point. And if that was truly happening, then I would imagine that NATO would join forces with Russia and say, yeah, this is a humanitarian disaster. This is a genocide, and we will help you. We will help you. But that's not happening, because there is no genocide going on. There have been reports of mass graves that have been completely fabricated. So essentially what's been happening over the last 72 hours is that Putin and the Kremlin and their assorted news services have been trumping up this narrative to counter what the rest of the world is seeing, which is the Ukraine is the teen daughter, the 18-year-old daughter who now is dating a guy named NATO, and that they don't like it. They don't like the new boyfriend. That's truly what is happening. Putin wants the Ukraine to stop thinking independently, to not go and start dating NATO and being a part of the West and joining Europe, which is what Ukraine apparently wants because they elected a president overwhelmingly who supports these ideas and ran on those ideas. All right. What else do we have? I'll show you something else that I've been watching that is absolutely fascinating. Here, I got to try and fix this. This is something that I found that I have... Oh no. Hold on, did I blow it? Yeah, okay, let's see how so this is really fascinating. I'll show you what this is. Here you go, guys. Okay, so this is Flight Tracker 24, which I've had on a screen the entire for the last 3 days. All right, so let's see what we're looking at here. This is very interesting. Okay, I'm going to zoom in here on the Ukraine, okay? So this area right here, this is the Ukraine. You can see how this area, all over Europe, there's planes everywhere. This particular area right here where there are no planes, and you can see all of these planes flying one by one along the border. This is the airspace where they're afraid some shit's going down, right? Now, this is interesting. This plane coming from Russia over Ukrainian airspace. Let's see what that is. Okay, that's a very ballsy Turkish airliner. All right, so that's nothing. So we don't worry about that. This here, this is the Azov, Sea of Azov. Is it Azov, whatever? Okay, Black Sea. This right here, this area where you see my little hand, as of midnight last night, Russia time, I believe it was like or Ukraine time. I believe it was like 6 or 7 o'clock our time. This has been declared a no-fly zone. The Russian Navy has moved an entire fleet into this area. Okay, so there are Russian ships here just off the coast of the Donbas region. This is a no-fly zone, so this is why you see no planes flying over this. Let's see what this is. Okay, that's just a normal plane. There was a number of UN planes that had been flying last night. Now, I don't know what that means. I don't know if those are scheduled flights, but it was interesting. So what we're looking for here is we're looking for some Russian military plane. No. Yeah, these all look like they are flying in commercial air traffic. How about this one? What's this guy? This guy is okay. What's this guy? This guy's going in the wrong direction. Okay, that's Turkish cargo. A lot of Turkish cargo planes. How about this one? Okay. All right, this is all traffic. See, the reason you click on these is that sometimes they show up like Russian military, Russian. Let's see what this guy is. Okay, this looks like a smaller plane. As they're pink. The ones that have NA, see down here where it has their flight plan and it has all their information. When they say NA, those are the ones that we're interested in because those are freaky planes. The Rusline, that's from Moscow. All right, so this here, I don't know what a special flight squadron is on this plane, but this one seems to be heading back towards Moscow. See what this is. All right, yeah, so this is all. So right now it looks like it's all commercial air traffic that is avoiding this area. There is no sign. Now, we have a drone that has been up there. Here, let's see. The United States Air Force drone, Fort 11, has been busting ass. Fort 11, flight by route. There, let's see where Fort 11 is. No, okay, so he's not up right now. Live flight by airline. No. What is this? Okay, that's the one I was on. All right, it doesn't appear that our drone is up, but our Air Force drones have been up there. There were 2 Air Force drones that were up yesterday for about, I don't know, a couple of hours, which is rare because usually there's only one. But one was flying throughout here on the border with Belarus, taking up troop positions and obviously monitoring any movements. And the other one was just going nuts through here. It was just they can stay up in the air, I understand, for like 40 hours. So it was just up running circles. It's always interesting when you find a Russian military plane in here. No. Okay, so let me X out of that. I keep monitoring that. I've got that on a different monitor over here, so I'll let you know if anything is going on. So here, now I will show you exactly what we're talking about. The area where all of this shit is happening. Give you a better look at it. Okay. So, we're back. Okay. Yeah, there it is. So this is a view from Russia. Okay. So here, I'll give you an example. Like this right here. See this area right here? See, it's kind of like condensed. That's Moscow, right? I believe that's Moscow. Yeah. Okay. So that's Moscow right here. just for your own edification, that's Moscow. This is Kiev over here. Okay. So Moscow, Kiev. And then this is the Crimea. This is the Sea of Azov. And this here is the Black Sea. This is where Sevastopol is. This is like a major Russian Navy port, like the largest Russian Navy port there is. So that's here. This area is what we're talking about. Okay, right here. This area. This is the sliver. This is the Donbas. This is where Donetsk is right here, in Luhansk, which they believe will be the first two major cities that'll be taken by the Russian military, who is all set up here. The DPR, which is a militia. It is a Kremlin-funded militia that exists in the Donbas. It exists here and it exists here. The DPR, who is backed by the Russians, have been causing chaos for the last couple. They've been blowing up pipelines. They've been doing all kinds of things in this area that the Russian military and Putin is saying the Ukrainian army is doing. But, I mean, all the intelligence in the Western world is saying that's the DPR. And the DPR's leader is going on TV going, we're getting slaughtered, help us. Meanwhile, he's sending his troops to blow up pipelines and cause all kinds of havoc. So this is the area right here that we're talking about. We are expecting, the whole world is expecting this, Putin in the next few minutes, because I'm looking at Luhansk, we are expecting Putin to declare this area Russian territory and then move his shit in, right? Now, if there is any sort of opposition to this from the Ukrainian military, if when they decide they're going to take this and the Ukrainian military goes into all-out war, which Zelensky has said he's prepared to do and they're ready to do. So if the Russians come in here and try and take the Donbas, cities of Luhansk and Donetsk, if that occurs, the Ukrainian military will then defend these cities because these are big cities in Ukraine. These are big, important cities. This would be like if Canada came down and said, we're going to take Boston and New York. You know, we would defend it. So they're going to defend it. And then the Russians are going to use the defense, the Ukrainian defense fighting here to come straight in, to come all into Kiev, to move over and take the entire nation. They're going to use that justification. So that's what we're waiting on hearing. Putin, in his national security meeting this morning, said that he was going to make a decision, and he would tell the country. Everyone is expecting this decision to be, I cannot allow fine Russian citizens to be the victim of this evil genocide, and we are going in. So that is what the entire world is waiting for. Okay, it says that Putin is speaking now. Okay, so let's see if we can hear this. He appears to be speaking. Let's see if we can I get this up before he makes the announcement? And will it be in English? Who even knows? Okay, there we go.
And today I'm addressing you directly, not only to talk about what's happening, but also to inform you about the decisions we're making, about possible steps in this regard. Once again, I would like to underscore that Ukraine is not just a neighboring country to us. It is an inherent part of our own history, culture, spiritual space. They are our comrades, relatives, not only colleagues, friends, but also our family, people we have blood and family ties with. Since ancient times, people from ancient southwestern Russian lands were calling themselves Russians and Orthodox.
Seems to be justifying an invasion.
Happening until 17th century, when part of these territories rejoined the Russian Empire, the Russian state, and after that, it seems that we know all about this, that we are talking about facts that everyone knows, but at the same time, we need to have understanding what is happening today to explain motives and aims that Russia has. We need to say a couple of words about the history of this matter. I would like to start by saying that the modern Ukraine is completely was completely created by Russia. To be more exact, by Bolsheviks, Bolshevik Communist Russia. This process has started almost immediately after the 1917 revolution. And Lenin and his supporters did it in a rough way. If we talk about Russia, they were alienating parts of historical territories of Russia. And millions of people who lived there, obviously no one asked anything. Then before the Great Patriotic War and after it, Stalin added to the USSR and handed over to Ukraine some lands that belonged to Poland and Hungary. And as a compensation, Stalin gave some ancient German lands to Poland. And in the 1960s, Khrushchev decided to take Crimea away from Russia and also gave it to Ukraine. That's how the territory of the Soviet Ukraine was formed. But now I would like to draw your attention to the initial stages of the establishment of the USSR. I think it's of utmost importance for us because we have to start from afar. I would like to remind you that after the October Revolution of 1917 and the civil war that followed, Bolsheviks started building a new state. And they had some differences among them. Stalin, who in 1922 was at the same time Secretary General of the Soviet Communist Party and People Commissar on the matters of ethnicities, decided to build the country on the principles of autonomy, thus giving to the republics, to the future administrative units, wide authority when they were supposed to join the state. Lenin criticized this plan and he suggested to make concessions to the nationalists, the way he called them back then advocates of independence. Basically, that was idea about creating a confederation and give the right to every nation for self-determination. That was the basis of the Soviet state. First, in 1922, it was enshrined in the Declaration on the Establishment of the Soviet Union, and then, after the death of Lenin, it was also enshrined in the Constitution of the USSR of 1924. And right away, here we have a lot of questions. It raises a lot of questions, and first of them, and the main question, why were they making all kinds of concessions to the nationalists at the outskirts of the former empire, to give to the administrative units that were haphazardly formed huge territories, oftentimes that had nothing to do with them, and they were giving these territories with the population of historic Russia, and these administrative units were given status and shape of the state entities. And once again, this begs a question: why did they have to do such generous gifts, even the most blatant nationalists couldn't dream of, and at the same time give the Republic a right to withdraw from the new state without any preconditions? At first glance, it doesn't seem clear. It seems like madness, but only at first glance, because there is an explanation. After the revolution, the main goal Bolsheviks had was to keep power, to stay at power at any cost. And for this, they went to any length to sign
Read the banners that RT is putting up. It's all about Ukrainian aggression against Russian troops.
When the Kaiser's Germany were in the dire economic situation and the outcome of the World War I was already almost decided, and by giving any concessions to the nationalists inside the country. From the point of view of the historic destiny of Russia and its people, Lenin's principles of building the state weren't a mere mistake. That was much worse than a mere mistake. After the collapse of the Soviet Union in 1991, this has become absolutely obvious. Of course, what happened in the past cannot be changed, but at least we have to talk about it in an honest and direct way, without any political agenda, without giving any political color to it. I can only add that the ideas of the current political realities, no matter how beneficial they might seem currently, under no circumstances cannot and should not be a basis of the building a state. I'm not blaming anyone, accusing anyone of anything. The situation in the country back then and after the Civil War and before the Civil War was incredibly difficult, was critical. And now I only can say that that's how it happened. That's a fact, that's a historical fact. And as a result of Bolsheviks' policy, the Soviet Ukraine was created. And we have every reason to say now that it's Ukraine created by Vladimir Lenin. He's its creator and architect.
All right.
And it's fully confirmed by the documents from the archives. Also including the decrees, Lenin's decrees regarding Donbass that was added to Ukraine. And now grateful descendants demolishing all the statues, all the monuments to Lenin. They call it decommunization. You want decommunization? Well, we are quite happy with that. But don't stop halfway. We are ready to show you what would mean actual decommunization for Ukraine. Coming back to the history of the matter, I would like to remind you that back in 1922, at the territory of the former Russian Empire, the Soviet Union was established, but the reality showed that keeping this territory and ruling this territory using the principles of confederation seems impossible because it had nothing to do neither with the realities nor with the historical tradition. And the Red Terror and switch to the Stalin's purges and the monopoly of the Communist Party, nationalization, planned economy, all that in reality was turned into a formality, nothing more. Principles that were declared but didn't actually work. In reality, Soviet republics had no sovereign rights. None. In practice, what was created, strictly centralized, unitarian in its character. State that was centralized. Stalin implemented not Lenin's ideas, but
quickly what we're listening for is to see if he declares or recognizes the Donbass as a part of Russia. If he does that, that's essentially him saying, that's ours, we're taking it, we're going in. That's what we're waiting to hear. A decision on that.
Technically, it seemed there was no need in this. Under totalitarian regime, authoritarian regime, everything worked well, and it looked nice from the outside. It looked more than democratic even. But still, it's a shame. It's a shame that from the formal foundations our state was built on, they didn't clear out this odious, utopic, brought about by the revolution, but destructive fantasies. And in the future, how it often happened, no one thought about it. The leaders of the Communist Party seem to be confident that they managed to build a
He's
strong
going over old history
to
establish precedent as to why he feels justified in doing this. He's reminding people of the history. He's claiming that Ukraine doesn't exist without Russia.
Could cost dearly.
The way a father might say to his 18-year-old daughter with a bunch of crazy new college thoughts in her head, you don't exist without me.
Reminding the state with this infection of nationalism was just waiting for its hour to come. Because once again, any republic had the right to withdraw from the USSR. In the middle of 1980s, against the background of raising problems, crisis of the planned economy, the nationalist issue that was caused not by some ideas of the Soviet peoples, but by growing appetites of the current leaders, was escalated. But the USSR leadership, instead of analyzing the situation and making thoughtful decisions in the economy and in the political system, in the governing system, they were only talking about restoring Lenin's principles about national self-determination. More than that, inside the Communist Party there was a struggle for power, and each side, wanting to expand its support, started to encourage this nationalism. They were trying to play with it. They were promising anything to this nationalists. And when they talked about the democracy and bright future based either on the market economy or planned economy, but when in reality people were getting poorer and poorer and their deficit got stronger, no one from the authority was thinking about tragic consequences. And then they went down well-throated path of satisfying the ambitions of nationalist elites that were raised inside
covering
the party.
history here.
Because the Communist Party doesn't have these tools anymore, which is good. So they couldn't keep the power, and they couldn't use such tools as dictatorship or purges, and even the governing role of the party was diluted like the fog in the morning in front of their eyes. And in September 1989, at the plenary session of the Communist Party, was made a fateful decision, the national policy of party under current conditions. So that these are the stipulations it had. Soviet republics have all the rights.
Putin's not a big speaker typically. This is rare for him to go on and on this much. He seems he's like he's like a defense attorney right now, closing arguments.
Any decrees and any loss of the Soviet government in their territories. And finally, every Soviet republic has its citizenship that is given to all its citizens. Wasn't it obvious what will be the outcome of such decrees? Now it is not the time and the place to talk about the constitutional right or give definition of what citizenship is, but still it begs a question. Why, in those difficult conditions, they needed to make the situation even less stable? But the fact is still a fact. 2 years before the Soviet Union collapsed, it was doomed. Now radicals and nationalists, including, and first of all, in Ukraine, they take the merit of winning independence. But we can see that that's not the truth. What happened to our country was caused by the mistakes done by the leadership of the Communist Party, made at different stages and at different times in their national and economical policies. The collapse of historical Russia, named the Ussr, was brought about by them. And despite all this, despite stealing from the people, our people agreed to the new realities that were brought about by the collapse of the USSR. They recognized new states, new republics, not only recognized.
Okay, just Russia quickly, there's a piece of news that is breaking right now,
its partners from the
unconfirmed.
CIS, including Ukrainian partners.
Hold on, let me make sure this is another. I'm following a whole bunch of Eastern European journalists on Twitter, so my Twitter feed gets all this stuff.
To the sovereignty of Ukraine.
There are multiple reports from blue checks
that can be proved just by looking at the prices
the Ukraine has just
carriers,
declared martial law
loans,
in anticipation of what he's about to say.
Russia was giving to Ukraine.
So Ukraine is getting ready for war.
The Ukrainian budget since 1991
Not confirmed.
to 2013
Not confirmed.
was about $200
I'm going to keep looking to see
dollars.
Get some sort of
But that's not all of it. By the end of 1991,
Western government confirmation of that
the debt
before.
of the USSR in front of other states in international fund was about 100 billion. And initially it was thought that this debt would be paid out by all the republics of the USSR in proportionate terms, in proportion with their economic potential. But Russia took the burden of paying out the entire Soviet debt and paid it out eventually. And we completed this process in 2017. And the other Soviet republics had to renounce from the Soviet assets, and this such agreement was signed in late 1994 with Ukraine, but Kiev didn't ratify this agreement, and later they refused to implement it. They were talking about golden reserves and about all kinds of assets of the former Soviet Union abroad. And still, despite the known problems, Russia has always cooperated and worked with Ukraine in an open and honest manner.
Okay, the big headline so far is that Putin has said that he is prepared to show Ukraine what, quote, real decommunization means.
11, the trade turnover was more than $50 billion.
That's a saber rattle.
And allow me to mention that the trade turnover of Ukraine with all the EU countries in 2019 before the pandemic
this is
was
the most
smaller
Putin
than
has
that.
sat for a speech.
And at the same time, it was not
in
as though
forever.
the Ukrainian authorities preferred to
He's
act
a
in
brief,
such a way
quiet guy.
that to have all the rights and preferences in the relations with Russia, but to carry no obligations at the same time, assuming no obligations. So it wasn't really a partnership. They were just trying to get more from Russia, and sometimes it looked unceremoniously.
Byron knows
For
about my
example,
hatred.
remember
of
the
color
blackmailing
beige.
in the
He's pointing out the beige
gas
votes.
transit, stealing gas even. I would like to remind you that they were trying to use dialogue with Russia as a tool to blackmail the West. They said that they would get closer to Russia, trying to win
Pointing out to the
preferences.
Russian people that
They
the
were
West
saying
is
that
being used by the evil Ukraine.
if not, the Russian presence in Ukraine will grow. And from the very first steps, they started building their statehood by renouncing everything that was bringing us together. They were trying to twist the historical memory of the generations of people who lived in Ukraine. So it comes as no surprise that the Ukrainian society faced the growth of the radical nationalism that became Russophobic and nationalist. That's why there are neo-Nazis and joining gangs in eastern Ukraine. The territorial claims against Russia were voiced more often. And the outer forces were also using their special services to raise their people in Ukraine and to move them into power, into the government. Ukraine has never had stable traditions.
I feel like I want to jump out of this because he's basically addressing the people of Russia and making the case to the people of Russia for whatever his decision is on the Donbas region. If he recognizes the independence of the Donbas region, that means that he's saying he is recognizing that that is not a part of the Ukraine, and therefore he can go in there without expectation of any sort of, retaliation from Ukraine military forces. The Ukrainian government is saying, what are you talking about? That's, again, I'll put it like this. That would be like if suddenly, Canada started to declare that Maine was a historical part of their country and that they were just going to go in and take Maine and that's all they were going to take. Again, he is making, from my estimation, he seems to be making a case to justify a military incursion into Ukraine.
Paid politicians first, they based on radicals and nationalists. Others, they were saying for good, friendly relations.
And it should also be mentioned at that point, the ball is in the court of the Western world. The ball is in the court of NATO. This doesn't mean there's going to be a war involving NATO forces or the West in general. All this means there will be a war. The Ukrainian military will defend their land. That's what they've been saying they will do. So in the initial stages, there will be a war between Ukrainian military forces and the Russian aggressors who are coming across the border to claim this swath of land that they say is always theirs. Now, the reaction to that is what the world is concerned about. After Ukraine and Russia slug it out, and, with all due respect to Ukraine, they do not have the military power to be in a prolonged war with Russia. Russia's got 200,000 troops on the border. Some estimates say more than that. And it was just 150,000 last Friday. So they have built up. And if you remember in conversations with Biden 2 weeks ago, Putin told him that he would draw down his people. So he didn't do that. He actually did the opposite. He built them up. He was just buying time Well, because we're waiting for the Olympics to end. The Olympics ended yesterday. It should be noted as well that the senior ranking Chinese official sent out an official tweet last night from the Chinese government saying that the Chinese government recognizes the sovereignty of all stated nations, which is not good for Putin, because there had been some idea that maybe China and Putin were best friends and that this was going to start a whole thing with China having Putin's back. It doesn't appear that way, at least not from the official Chinese government tweets last night saying, basically, don't do this, Putin. We do not accept your claim that this is Russian territory. So that's interesting. The other thing that occurred yesterday was the story was going around that former French President Francois Macron had been on the phone all day long with Putin, trying to broker some kind of a last-minute peace deal, trying to talk Putin off the ledge. And the story that was released last night at about 6 o'clock our time was that Macron had gotten Putin and Biden to both agree to meet in a summit. Right? So that was big news. And a lot of people ran with that. But what they didn't do was read the whole thing, the agreement. There was no agreement for Putin and Biden to meet in a summit. They both independently agreed in principle that a summit would be a good thing. But Putin had some, rules about the summit if they were to meet. It would have to occur after Thursday, which is when the Soviet Prime Minister and Tony Blinken, the American Secretary of State, were scheduled to meet. And only after that would Putin and Biden meet if Blinken and his his Russian counterpart agreed on what the conversation would be. So don't believe. There was a brief moment last night when people thought, okay, good. Okay, so they're going to stand down and nothing is going to happen until after. But no, again, this is Putin buying time. All he wanted to do is just slow roll everybody. This is the moment of truth right here.
Them to court of justice. Maidan didn't bring Ukraine closer to democracy. After perpetrating coup d'etat, nationalists and those political forces that backed them brought the situation to the deadlock. They pushed Ukraine into the chasm of civil war. And 8 years later, the country is divided. It's going through dire economical crisis. According to the estimates of international organizations in 2018, almost 6 million Ukrainians, which is almost 15%, not of the able population, but of the entire population, had to move abroad looking for jobs. And as a rule, they were doing some basic work and qualified work. And here is another fact. Starting 2020, 60,000 doctors and other medical professionals.
Yeah, I call him Putin derisively, but Putin is his name.
The water prices increased by almost 1/3.
I was doing that on purpose, not necessarily on purpose, but I do derisively call him Putin.
Many people have no money to pay for the utility bills. They have to survive, literally. What happened? Why all this is happening? The answer is obvious, because things that they inherited from the Soviet Union, from the Russian Empire, was literally stolen, hidden in pockets. Hundreds of jobs were lost that were giving stable income to the people with the participation of the Russian Federation. Such areas as machine engineering, power industry, plane aircraft manufacturing. They are either in crisis or destroyed. And the entire Soviet Union used to be proud of these industries. In 2021,
all right, breaking news being reported on CNN.
Factory
although Putin hasn't said this yet, Kremlin officials have leaked in reports that Putin will recognize separatist regions in the Ukraine as independent states.
Factory that was
They
building
can have their freedom as long as they do whatever I tell
machinery.
them. So that's
They are
what we're
almost
waiting on,
bankrupt.
confirmation of that.
Same like the Kremenchuk steel factory. As for the gas transport system that was built by the entire Soviet Union,
God, it's like it's
it has become
Festivus.
so
He is
dilapidated
just, it's the airing
that
of the grievances.
using it has a lot of risks. And in this regard, we have a question. This poverty, loss of the industrial and technological potential, is that the choice, the pro-Western choice that was put into the heads of the people for years now? Is that it? In reality, everything comes down to the fact that the collapse of the Ukrainian
according to one source here,
goes
Putin
along
has now
with,
spoken 25 minutes
robbing the
longer
Ukrainian
than he has
people,
ever
and Ukraine
spoken to the
itself
nation
is now being
before.
controlled from the outside. It is perpetrated not only by the instructions from the West, but also locally by a network of foreign consultants, NGOs and other institutions deployed in Ukraine. They have direct influence on all the important decisions at all the levels of government, from the central down to the municipal. It influences the main state corporations, Ukrainian railways, energy complex, Ukrainian post, administration of the seaports of Ukraine. And Ukraine doesn't have independent court system anymore.
Stolen
Kiev
and
authorities
destroyed by the Ukraine.
Gave the preferential right to choose the members of the supreme legislation.
He's painting Russia as a victim
Bodies.
in Ukraine's
And via its embassy
desire
in
to
the
be a free
U.S.,
state.
the embassy of the U.S. directly controls the National Agency
Interesting
on
twist there.
Preventing Corruption, National Anti-Corruption Bureau, Specialized Anti-Corruption District Attorney Office, and Anti-Corruption Court. It's all done under the pretense to increase the efficiency of fighting corruption. Well, okay then. But
Okay.
where are the results? Because corruption is still there. It's even worse than it was. Do Ukrainians know about these choices? Do they understand that their country has become not even a protectorate, now it's a colony with puppets at its helm? The privatization of the state has led to the fact that the authorities that call themselves the authorities of patriots doesn't have
Now he's appealing to the Ukrainian
interest
people
of
to
the
say, I'm
nation.
coming to save you.
But otherwise, they continue to assimilate Russian speakers by force. They are adopting more and more discriminatory decrees. Now they have a law on the native nations, those people who deem themselves Russian. They are let know that they do not belong in Ukraine. According to the laws on education and on Ukrainian language as a state language, Russian language is being thrown away from schools, from all public spaces, including shops. The so-called lustration law, cleansing of the power,
Because they have
allows
their own
them
language.
to chase away public servants that they don't like. They adopt decrees that allow law enforcement to suppress the freedom of choice, the freedom of speech.
Oh, you don't do that.
We know
That's
the
not
sad
something
practice
Putin
of
does.
unilateral, illegitimate sanctions about other
Putin's
states,
an old
about
hippie.
the foreign individuals and legal entities. In Ukraine,
Yeah,
they
he's full
went
of
even
shit.
further than their
He is
Western
just-
partners.
he is
They came up
hornswoggling his
with
own
such an
people here.
instrument as a sanctions against their
Look
own
at me.
citizens,
I'm a cool
entities,
guy.
media outlets, even parliament members.
I'm a cool
In Kyiv,
guy.
they
You
are
know,
preparing
come on. I don't lie.
decrees against the Russian Orthodox Church. And that's not an emotional estimate. We have certain documents. We have decisions that is talking about this. The split in church in Kyiv, they cynically turned into an instrument of
Still don't have any
national policy.
true and
The current
official
leadership of the
confirmation about
country does
martial
not
law
react
being
to the
declared in
requests of the
Ukraine.
people to cancel the
CNN
laws
hasn't
that
reported it
undermine
either.
the rights of the believers. And now they have new laws adopted against the Ukrainian Orthodox Church. And I would like to talk separately about Crimea. Population of the Crimea Peninsula made their choice to be with Russia.
Well, well, did they?
Ukrainian authorities have nothing to say against this. That's why they placed their bets on aggression.
That's because the authorities back then were working
use
for
cells
you.
of extremists, including the radical Islamic organizations. They are sending saboteurs to destroy vital infrastructure. They kidnap citizens of Russia. We have proof, we have evidence that such aggressive activities is perpetrated with the support of foreign special services. In March of 2021, Ukraine adopted new military strategy. This document almost completely aimed at confrontation with Russia. They want to drag foreign states into the conflict with our country. The strategy suggests to organize Russian Crimea and Donbass, basically terrorist underground.
Terrorism.
And it also outlines the possible war.
Another
and
reason.
it is supposed to end the way the Ukrainian strategists now think, with the support of international community on the beneficial conditions beneficial for Ukraine. And also, as they say in Kyiv now, and I'm quoting also,
Oh, Kyiv.
just listen
The
to
Russian
it carefully,
translator pronounced
with
it in the
military
Ukrainian way.
support
Kyiv.
of the world community and geopolitical confrontation against
they're
the
spelling
Russian
it,
Federation. Basically, that's nothing but preparation for our conflict against us, against Russia. We also heard statements about Ukraine wanting to create their own nuclear weapon. And that's not just idle threat. Ukraine really has nuclear technology and carriers to deliver such weapons back from the Soviet times.
He's scaring
And
the
they
Russian
have
people.
launchers, also designed in the Soviet Union. It has range
have
of more
nuclear
than 100
capabilities,
kilometers,
you say.
and they can increase that. It's a matter of time.
He's
They
about,
still
he's
have
about
this
to pull from the
technology
old
from
weapons of
Soviet
mass
time.
destruction
So
playbook.
getting tactical nuclear weapon will be much easier for Ukraine than for certain other states. I'm not going to list them that are now researching this, especially if they have technological support from abroad. And we can't exclude this. If Ukraine has a weapon of mass destruction,
This
the
is madness.
situation in
He
the
is
world,
making
in
a
Europe,
case for
especially
what could
us,
turn out to be
for
an
Russia,
all-out war
will
in
change
Europe.
drastically. We cannot help but react to this real threat, especially since I would like to reiterate
Unless
that Western
the
backers,
West
they can
bluffs.
help Ukraine with getting this weapon
buys the
to
bluff,
create
doesn't
yet
do
another
anything,
threat
which is a
for our
possibility.
country, because we can see how consistently they are pumping Ukraine with weapons. The United States alone, starting from 2014, transferred billions of dollars, including the arms supply, training, personnel. In recent months, Western weapons are sent to Ukraine
The United States, the new
ceaselessly.
boyfriend, is filling Ukraine's head with all kinds
in
of
front
things.
of the eyes of the entire world.
Ukraine's got new friends.
The activities of
Mom and Dad
the
don't like the
Ukrainian
new
army
friends.
is governed by the foreign consultants, and we are well aware of that. Last year, under the pretext of the war games, the military contingents of the NATO countries were deployed in Ukraine. The Ukrainian army is already integrated into NATO. It means that
I guess that's one way of looking at it. The other way would be that the Ukrainian
Ukrainian
people have
units,
decided
Ukrainian
that
army
they want
units
to
can
be
be done
a
directly from the
freedom,
NATO headquarters.
loving, sovereign,
The West started to
Western-aligned
explore
democracy.
the territory of
He doesn't like
Ukraine
that.
as the future theater of military action, as the future battlefield, and it is aimed against Russia. Last year alone, it had more than 20,000 troops and more than 1,000 equipment, hardware units.
20,000 troops and
And
equipment
number,
they had
have already
last year.
adopted the law to
Meanwhile, he's
allow
saying this while he's got
foreign troops
200,000
to enter
troops
the
on their
territory of
border.
Ukraine to participate in the war games. And first of all, it means the NATO troops. And this year, they planned no less than 10 drills like that. And it serves as a cover to increase the NATO contingent in Ukraine.
It's interesting
Especially
hearing this
since
because we have
the network of
access
airfields,
to the other side of the
Boryspil,
argument. We have access.
Ivano-Frankivsk,
The
Chugoyev,
people he is
Odessa, and
speaking
so on,
to in Russia
it
do
can
not
be
have
used
access
to deploy troops in shortest
the other side of
terms.
the argument.
The
This-
airspace
they're
for
getting it all
Ukraine
from
is
him.
open for reconnaissance and strategic planes of NATO, unmanned drones that are used to monitor the territory of Russia. And the Naval Operations Center built by the Americans in Ochakov allows NATO ships to use it as a port and allows to use high-precision weapons against Black Sea Navy and our entire infrastructure on the Black Sea coast. Some time ago, the U.S. wanted to build such infrastructure in Crimea, but the population of Crimea and Sevastopol, they said, For now,
I like that
and we will
pronunciation.
remember
I
that.
call it Sevastopol.
But now,
Sevastopol
this center has
is
already
fun.
been built and deployed in Ochakov. And I would like to remind you, in 18th century, Alexander
Putin is breaking all
Suvorov's
kinds of
soldiers
records
fought for
as far
this
as him
city,
sitting and
and
talking.
it's their bravery allowed it to add the city to Russia. Back then, in the 18th century, the Black Sea coastlands that were fought from, got from Turkey, from Ottoman Empire, was given name Novorossiya. Now they want to forget this name, like they want to forget the deeds of the famous commanders, without which Ukraine itself wouldn't have access to the Black Sea. Recently in Poltava, they demolished the monument to Alexander Suvorov. Well, what can I say? You are renouncing your own pet, the so-called colonial legacy of the Soviet Empire. Well, be consistent then. Article 17 of the Constitution of Ukraine doesn't allow military bases of foreign states to be deployed in their territory, but it seems that it can be bypassed. They have deployed training missions of the NATO
Fast Outdoor
countries in
Food
Ukraine.
asks, are
Basically,
European troops
that's a
mobile
military
enough
base
to get
already.
Ukraine quickly
They just call
if
it a
Russia
mission,
attacks,
and it's
or is
done.
Ukraine going to
In
get drilled?
Kyiv, they have long
The
declared
Ukraine army,
strategic
the military,
aim at joining NATO. Yes,
Can hold them
obviously
off in the
every
beginning.
country have the right to
hold
choose
them
their
off
own
is a
alliances
relative
to
term. The Ukraine army, the
sign
Ukraine
military
military
agreements.
has been built
That's
up
true,
in the last few
but there
years
is one.
with the help
But
of the West and with
in
the help of NATO
international
nations.
law, it says the principle,
They're not
there's a
gonna get
principle
steamrolled.
of
It's gonna be a
indivisible
war.
security,
But
which
as far
states
as the
that
closest
one
nation
country
where there
cannot
are
enhance its
large
security at
amounts
the
of NATO
expense
troops,
of
that would
the
be
security
Poland,
of others. And I
which is
can
on the
refer here to
western
the
border
European
of
Security
Ukraine.
OSCE Charter.
So in
that
eastern
was adopted
Poland,
in Istanbul in
there are
1999, and
significant
Astana
NATO
OSCE
troops. None of
declaration
them
from
mobilized
2010.
specifically
In
for
other words,
whatever
choosing
happens
means
next,
to
but
enhance
they're
one's
there
security
permanently.
should not
So,
create any threats for
yeah,
other states.
Poland is
and
on
if
the border.
Ukraine was
Poland
to
is,
join NATO, would serve as a direct threat to
then
the
Germany
security
is
of
right
Russia.
across the border
And I
from
would
that.
remind
So
you,
there
back
are
in April of
places-
2018 at the Bucharest summit of the
It's
North
like, you know,
Atlantic Treaty Organization,
the war is happening in
USA
Texas, and there are troops in
forced these members to
Indiana.
make a decision that
they can get down pretty quick.
certain states were to join NATO. A lot of European allies already back then understood all the risks of such a step, but they had to.
And again,
adhere
planes.
to the
We're talking
will
about
of
planes.
their
It'll be
older
air
partner.
support.
Americans
The
used
boots on the
them
ground are
to
a
pursue
last ditch effort.
anti-Russian
It'll
policy.
be air support, NATO air support.
Some
Yeah,
NATO
they can-
members still
they can be ready in
skeptical
hours.
about Ukraine joining NATO. And from some European capitals, we get a signal. They are saying, so what are you worrying about? It's not going to happen tomorrow. And our American counterparts are saying the same. We say, okay, it is not going to happen tomorrow, but the day after tomorrow then. What will it change? In historical context, nothing. More than that,
All right,
we
Putin's
know
basically
that
just
the
saying, if not
stance
now,
and
when?
the statements of the U.S. leadership
he's
about
ramping
the active confrontation military actions in the east of Ukraine would not stop Ukraine
Biden is
to
also
join
gonna
NATO
speak
if it will
later this
correspond to the
afternoon.
criteria of the NATO Charter and if they can overcome corruption. And they try to convince us that NATO is a peaceful and defensive bloc. So there is no threat for Russia. And they, again, suggest we believe their words. But we already know the value of such words. Back in 1990, when we talked about uniting Germany, the USA promised to the Soviet leadership that neither jurisdiction nor military presence
Ukraine is not a NATO
would not
country.
move an inch to the east, and
Ukraine is
unification
at
of
best
Germany
NATO
would not
adjacent.
lead
They
to
are a
the
NATO
eastward
ally.
expansion of NATO. And I'm quoting here. So they
But
were
NATO is
saying
not
all these things,
required
they were
by
giving us
charter
assurances,
to defend
but
Ukraine.
these were just words later. They started
They
saying
just could and
that
should
Central
because they
European
are
and
an
Eastern
ally.
European countries joining NATO will improve their relations with Moscow, will rid these countries from the fears of their difficult historical legacy, and more than
Adam Rayner
that,
wants to know what I missed. Well,
allow
we're
them
waiting to hear if
create
Putin is going to
this wealth
declare
of
the
the friendly
Donbas independent,
nations.
which would give him
But
justification
it
to
was
roll
the
in and
other
start
way
the war
around.
in the next couple of hours,
These
which is what
states
most
are
people
now
believe.
bringing their stereotypes, their
NATO
complexes
forced
of
European
the
states to
Russian
carry out
threat to
anti-Russian
NATO.
policy.
They
All right, he's
insisted
making a
on
case
increasing
against NATO,
potential
the
of
evil NATO.
collective
He's prepping the
security
Russian
that
people.
was supposed to be deployed against Russia, first of all. And it was happening back in the 1990s and early 2000s when, because of the openness and
Again, folks, don't
goodwill,
have this be lost on you. This
our
is
goodwill,
major
relations
world
between
history
Russia and the
unfolding
West
right here.
were
This is
at
the
high
longest
level.
speech Putin has ever given.
Russia fulfilled all its obligations, withdrew troops from Germany, from the Central and Eastern European countries, and it made a huge contribution in overcoming the legacy of the Cold War. We consistently suggested all kinds of cooperation, including in the format of the Russian NATO Council and OSCE. More than that, I will say one thing that I have never said before in public.
Oh,
I will say it for the first time.
I like little boys.
Back in 2000, when President Bill Clinton was visiting Moscow at the end of his term, I asked him, how would America see Russia joining NATO? I would not give you all the details of that conversation, but the reaction to my conversation looked, well, very reserved, let me put it this way. And how did Americans really look at this possibility? You can see it in their practical steps in regard of our country. Open support of the terrorists in North Caucasus, ignoring our demands and our concerns in the security area, withdrawing from the treaties, arms treaties, and so on and so forth. It still begs the question, why? Why did they do that? What for? Okay, you don't want to see a friend in us, an ally in us, but why do you want to make an enemy out of us? The only answer that we got was, it's not about our political regime or anything else, it's just they don't need such a big and independent country as Russia. So that's the answer to all the question. That's the source of traditional American policy they pursue in the Russian track. That's why they react like this to all our proposals about security. You only need to look at the map to see how did the Western countries keep their word about non-expansion of NATO eastwards. They just lied to us. We had...
Okay, so he just told a story about how when he met with Clinton back in the 1990s, he proposed to Clinton, what if, how would you feel if Russia joined NATO? And Clinton was like, oh, well, we could kind of talk about that. Folks, that's like the guy who robs houses in the neighborhood going, hey, what would you think if you just gave me some keys to your front door? That NATO is established to keep the Soviet Union and now freaks like Putin in check. They're not going to be invited in until we see wholesale changes in the way that country runs shit. He said, they wanted to be in NATO, and they said no. Well, yeah, no fucking kidding, stupid. They're not going to want you in NATO. You're the reason that NATO exists. We're not worried about aggression coming from Hungary, which is actually a NATO nation. We're not worried about that. We're worried about European aggression coming from you.
Project, they deploy anti-missile defensive systems.
He's just saying
We all
crazy
know
shit
that
here.
the launchers deployed there can be used for cruise missiles Tomahawk. That is a strike weapon, strike system. And USA is also developing Standard 6 missile. It can not only be used as an anti-missile
April asks if the Ukraine would
defensive
just give up
tool. It
Donbas
can
like they
strike
did Crimea.
targets
Well,
on
remember,
land
they gave
and
up
on the sea.
Crimea because the government
So
of Ukraine
they are
at the time
expanding
was
their
aligned with
infrastructure, and
the
they
Kremlin,
get new
right?
offensive
The people of
capabilities.
Crimea
From the
are the ones who are
information that
like,
we
hey,
get,
this
we
is
have
happening
every
to us.
reason
And
to
then the
believe
Ukraine government, the
that
official Ukraine government at the time was like,
deploying
we're not gonna,
sites,
hey, just
facilities
have it.
of
It's a
North
different
Atlantic
government
Treaty
now.
Organization.
So
This
the
decision
question,
has
would
already
Ukraine
been
just
made.
give up
That's
Donbas like they
just
did
a matter
Crimea?
of time. We understand
All
clearly
points,
that under
all
this
things
scenario,
point
the
to
level
no,
of military threat
no,
for
they
Russia
will not.
will be increased
Ukraine has
manifold. I
really
would like
built
to
up
draw
their
your
military
attention
in the last few
once
years
again
in
that
anticipation
there will
of
be
exactly
bigger
this
threat
kind of
of
Russian
immediate
aggression.
attack against our country.
So no, added
in
earlier,
American strategic
Luhansk and
documents.
Donetsk are
There's
two
doctrine.
fairly large
There is
cities
such
in
a
the
possibility
Ukraine, and that would be
of
like,
preventive work against the missile
would
complexes
America
of
just
the
give up
adversary.
Boston
And
and
who's
New
the main
York,
adversary of the United States?
If that's,
We all know
if that's
that.
where the war
Russia.
would end? No, we wouldn't. You're not going to give up
In NATO documents, our
major
country is officially
population
directly
centers in your country.
called
The
main
Crimea
threat
was
to
a
the
big
North
deal. I mean,
Atlantic
they want
security.
Crimea back. Because Crimea
And
is a
Ukraine will serve
major
as the
strategic location that
platform
Ukraine
for such an offense. If
needed
our
on the Black Sea
ancestors
there.
heard
Russia
about that, they
controls
would
the Black
probably
Sea now
thought
because they
that
took
it's
Crimea.
impossible. We don't want to believe that either, but that's how it is now.
He has
I
been
want people
talking
from Russia
for
and Ukraine
almost
to
an
understand
hour.
that.
Actually, no, we just passed the 1
Many
hour
Ukrainians' airfields are positioned close to our borders, and strategic NATO airplanes using high-precision weapons can
European
strike
Union, they're
targets
lying
in
about
Volgograd,
non-expansion
Samar,
of
and
NATO.
Kazan, and Astrakhan. Using reconnaissance tool will allow NATO to control the airspace of Russia up until the Urals. And finally, after the U.S. withdrew from the INF Treaty, the Pentagon
See, that's what I was saying early.
openly
NATO is
started
in Poland
developing
right there on the border,
a
so
whole
they could
range
get there
of the
pretty quick.
land-based missiles with a range of 5,500 kilometers. If such systems are deployed in Ukraine, they can hit the targets in the European Russia and also behind the Urals. And the travel time of the Tomahawk
Should also be
missiles
mentioned that
to Moscow will be less
Poland
than
is NATO,
35 minutes.
Slovakia
Ballistic
is
missiles,
NATO,
7-8 minutes,
Latvia is
and the
NATO.
hypersonic offensive
I
weapons,
believe
4 or
Lithuania
5
may
minutes.
as well be, may it also be NATO. So there's
That's
a lot of NATO
like
nations
having a
right in
knife
that neck
against
of
our
the woods.
throat. And I have no doubt
I only know
they
that
plan to
Poland is where
implement
there's a
these
big NATO
ideas.
military there.
And as it has been done previously when they expanded NATO to the east,
Now he's saying the U.S. is planning
moving infrastructure,
Start a
military
war.
infrastructure closer to our
We're
borders,
starting it, dude.
ignoring
This is
our
also the
protests and our
200,000
warnings.
troops on the border of a
They
sovereign
just
nation.
didn't care about that. They did whatever they deemed necessary and appropriate. And I believe they plan to continue doing like that. Because they see us as a dog barking at a
Okay, he's
caravan.
also being
We have never
misleading.
agreed
It
to
won't
that,
be
and we
U.S.
never
jets.
will.
It
Russia
won't be
was
NATO
always
jets. The United States
standing
military
for
isn't going to go this
resolving
alone.
the most
It will
difficult
be
issues
U.S.
at the
military
negotiating table.
apparatus as it
Diplomatically,
fits
we
into
understand
a
our
NATO
response
force.
responsibility for global stability. Back in 2008, Russia has come up with
He's
an
looking for
initiative
a
on signing
bad guy, and he's going to
an
turn us
agreement
into the
about
bad
European security. And its
Turn us
idea
in.
was,
Hell, he's been making us the bad guy
that
for
no
30
state,
years.
no international organization
Never
of the
forget
European
this guy
Atlantic
used to be in charge
could
of the
not
KGB.
enhance its security at the expense of security of others. But our suggestion was refuted from the get-go because we can't allow Russia to limit the activities of NATO. We were told that legally binding guarantees of security, only NATO members can have such guarantees. And last December, we have sent our partners the draft document about security guarantees and also the draft agreement on the measures of enhancing Russian security and NATO member security. In response,
That's a good
NATO
question,
members
April.
and the US were saying a lot of words. There was some reasonable ideas, but they were talking only about secondary things.
April
And
asks,
it looked
is he
as an
reading this
attempt
as a
to
prepared statement? I
bring
think he
this
is. His
discussion
eyes
away
seem
from
to
the main
be...
point, and we reacted in kind.
You know what I think
I'd
he's
like to
doing? I think
emphasize
he's
that
got
we
an
are ready
outline,
to
and then he's
negotiate,
sort of
but only
freeballing a
on the
little bit.
condition that all matters will be considered as a package in complex without going away from the main proposals.
But yeah, I
made
have
by
to
Russia.
imagine that
And those
the
have three
belly
main
of
items.
this speech
Firstly, non-expansion of
is on a teleprompter.
NATO to the east, non-deployment of offensive weapons next to the Russian borders, and finally, bringing back the military infrastructure back to the configuration of 1997 when the founding act was signed between Russia and NATO. These principled proposals were ignored. Our Western partners, once again, they were saying same old words that every state has freedom to choose ways to enhance its security, to provide its security to join any military alliances. So nothing changed in their position. They talk about the same open doors policy. More than that, once again,
He
they
is
try to
literally
blackmail us.
playing Russian
Once
roulette
again,
here.
they threaten us with
That
sanctions.
is literally what
And I think
Putin
they
is
will
doing.
still impose those.
Putin, U.S. says only
introduce
NATO
those
members can
as
enjoy security
strong
guarantees.
and as
Yes,
more
from
powerful
you.
our country becomes.
The whole point, they exist to feel
We will
secure
always find
in
an
the face
excuse
of people like
to introduce
you, and
more
specifically you.
sanctions, regardless of the situation in Ukraine, that is. The only goal they have is to contain the development of Russia. And they will do that like they did it before, without any formal excuse, only because we exist. And we will never.
Hey, by the way, you Fox News fans,
sovereignty,
remember all the
the
shit that
national
he's talking about
interest,
the
and
United
our
States, about
values.
how we're
And I
causing
want
this and
to
how we're
be
the enemy
frank.
and how we're the
In
bad
the
guy.
current situation,
Remember this when you're watching
our
Tucker
proposals
Carlson
about
tonight tell you about what a
equitable
good guy
dialogue
Putin
about
is and how he's
principal
totally
matters
misunderstood.
had no response
remember
from the
that.
U.S. and
I'm getting
NATO
sick
when
of
the
all this
level of
fucking
threat
pro-Russian
for our
bullshit
country is
that I'm
becoming
seeing
greater
on
and
social
greater.
media.
Russia has
The
every
bots are
right
out, man,
to
and they have
take countermeasures
brainwashed
to
a very
enhance
large
our own
portion. Nah, I
security.
wouldn't say
And
very
that's
large.
how
They
we plan to
brainwashed a
act.
lot of people.
As for situation in Donbass, we can see that the Kiev elite keeps stating publicly about lack of willingness to implement the Minsk agreements to
Well, I like the way
settle
he
the
says
conflict.
willingness.
They are not
Willingness.
interested in peaceful resolution. Vice versa, they want to start blitzkrieg, like it happened back in 2014 and 2015. And you
Kiev
remember
wants to start a war, he just
what
said.
those,
Kiev
how
wants
it ended. Now, almost every day, they are shelling settlements in Donbass. They have amassed
Ukrainian
large
army is
troops.
attacking their own
They're
cities,
using
is what he's claiming now.
offensive, unmanned vehicles and other heavy machinery, torturing people, children, women, elderly people. It doesn't stop. It doesn't cease. We see no end to it. And the so-called civilized world, and our Western colleagues proclaim themselves as the only representatives of this free world. They prefer not to notice this, as if there is nothing like this happening. There is no genocide perpetuated against 14 million people.
There is
And
no
the only
evidence of
reason
genocide.
is that these people didn't want to back the coup d'etat in 2014. They stood against the nationalist movement, the movement towards nationalism, Stone Age nationalism and Nazism, and they want to defend their basic rights to live on their land, to speak their native language, to preserve their traditions and their culture. How much longer that could go on? How much longer can they bear it? Russia did everything it could to keep the territorial integrity of Ukraine. We tried hard to implement the resolution of the Security Council of UN 2202 that endorsed the Minsk agreements on resolving the situation in Donbass, but everything was done in vain. The presidents are changing, the parliament members are changing, but the idea of the aggressive regime is still the same, regime that seized the power in Kiev. It was created by the
Fast
coup
Outdoor
d'etat of
Food says,
2014,
can't
and
NATO
those
turn off most
who
of their
chose
oil?
the way of
That could cause a big problem. Well,
violence, they
nobody in the
admit
world
they see
produces
no
more oil
other
than
way
Russia.
to resolve the
They've
Donbass
got their
crisis
own oil
other
and they've
than the
got their
military
own
way. In
refineries.
this
Now,
regard,
when
I
you
deem
say
it necessary to make a decision that should have been made a long time ago.
When you say
Immediately
can
recognize
NATO
the
turn
independence and
off
sovereignty
Russian
of
oil? Well,
Donetsk People's Republic
the rest
and
of the world
Lugansk
can
People's
stop
Republic.
buying Russian oil, and that's a big part of what the
And I would
sanctions
like
are
to
about, because that would cripple them economically,
the
because the
Federal
economy of
Assembly to
Russia is
support
almost
to
wholly
back this
dependent on
decision
the
and
export of
ratify
Russian
the
oil.
agreement of
10.25
friendship and
million
mutual
barrels
help
a
with
day,
both republics.
ranked
We will
first in the
draft
world.
this
I'm
document
reading
and
this
sign
right
these
now as far
documents
as
in the
Russian
near
crude
future.
goes. So, yes, the Western
And
world can
those who
turn
seize the
off
power and
in
keep the
terms
power in
of
Kyiv
they can
will
sanction
demand
the
to
export
stop
or
hostilities
purchase of Russian oil
immediately.
and make it
Otherwise,
illegal.
all
But
the
then
responsibility for
But then
the
we're going to
possible
see,
continuation
insane
of
oil
the
prices around the rest of the
that
world
will be
because we're going to
on the
have to turn to other
consciousness of the
sources.
regime that is ruling in Kiev.
This is something that the West and America specifically has dabbled in the past. We have strategic oil reserves. We have enough oil that if something like that were to happen...
The Russian President Vladimir Putin there giving us what was a very highly expected and anticipated announcement there, that ultimately he is recognizing that of the autonomy of these breakaway republics in eastern Ukraine. Talk about taking the long way around, Saskia. You know, he really started off his whole statement with what was essentially a bit of a history lesson. He talked all about the Bolshevik Revolution, the days of Stalin, World War II, the Great Patriot War, the collapse of the USSR as well. And I think it's actually very important and extremely pertinent because the history of Russia is so rich. And by him explaining...
All right, so I missed it because I was talking. We went through all of that, and then my dumbass... I think that's exactly... All right, so apparently, according to RT, he has... All right, so recognize it. Biden begins conducting interview. Okay, that's not important. So all of that and what we learned after that hour and 10, hour and 11 minute speech from Vladimir Putin was that he is going to recognize the Donbas as an independent region that just happens to be filled with Russian loyalists, according to him. And because they're being persecuted by the big mean Ukrainian military, he is now laid out to the world, and more importantly in that speech, to the people of Russia, why they're about to get a whole bunch of body bags sent back to him, because this is a war. He's going to now move in. We're going to have to see exactly how this plays out in the next couple of hours, but I would fully expect for there to be some form of movement here with troops. They've been sitting. Here's the other thing that is incredibly important. It is really expensive to have 200,000 troops sitting on a border, stationary, for as long as they have been. Now, granted, the buildup has been over the course of the past 5 weeks, and it's only now that we're up over 200,000 Russian troops on the border. But that's expensive, man. You got to feed these people. You got to keep the machines running. You're burning oil. These people are getting paid essentially to do nothing. It is a big expense to keep that kind of military force sitting still. So they can't just sit. They can't sit for much longer. And what are they going to do? Turn around and go home at this point? So, and Russia is not a burgeoning economy. We talk about the wealth gap in this country. The wealth gap in Russia is even worse than here. The oligarchs control everything. The people hate the oligarchs. It's the haves and the have-nots. The people, the rank and file people on the street of Russia hate the oligarchs. They blame the oligarchs for everything. And in the speech, you heard Putin say as much, that the corrupt oligarchs, because that's him appealing to the people, because Putin doesn't want to get dragged through the streets, because that's the people rise up. That's what'll happen. They'll go after him first and drag him through the streets. But the fact of the matter is that 100% of Putin's power, the reason that he's been able to stay in power for over 2 decades now in Russia, being a wildly unpopular leader. He is not beloved by the people of Russia. What he is beloved by the oligarchs. So disregard anything that he said there about the evil oligarchs. That was just him pandering to the people. He is 100% in the pocket of the oligarchs. They are the reason the oligarchy, billionaires, wealthy people who raped the country after the fall of the Soviet Union, people who went from being truck drivers to having, an NBA team, guys that went from being just regular people, not even regular, a middle class, high ranking people within the Soviet structure, who are now worth tens of billions of dollars from raping the oil reserves, from whatever it is. There was a lot of money made after the fall of the Soviet Union for a very small group of people. And those oligarchs are the true power behind the throne. Putin sitting on the throne. So don't be confused by him telling the people of Russia that it's evil oligarch. He has to say that. And his oligarch buddies are like, yeah, go ahead. You just keep the people in check, because after they come for you and drag you through the streets, they're going to come for us. And we really don't. That was an insane speech. There was so much nonsense that guy just put out there to justify whatever it is that he's going to do next. And by do next, I mean in the next couple of hours. What time is it now? So it is 8, 9, it is 9, it is 10:41 in Moscow. Okay, so we're also seeing here now, this according to Max Seedon, who is one of the journalists covering, apparently, we watched RT, which was the English language propaganda arm of the Kremlin's news network. We had all been told here in the West, and we were told there on RT, that was live, okay? So that's why it was late. Oh, he must be busy doing things. He was supposed to come on the air at the top of the hour, and he came on 24 minutes late. Oh, this truly must be live. Seeing reports now that Russian television, the actual Russian media, not RT, which again is a wholly created fabrication, a propaganda wing for the Kremlin to put in the English language all of their wills and all of their wishes. The actual Russian media, immediately after Putin said that he is going to convene a meeting and discuss the signing of certification that the Donbas region is now independent. Okay, so Russian TV went directly from the speech to showing a clip of him doing just that. So there we have it. So now we know that speech, which was told to us that it was supposed to be live, hell, they even ran late. Turns out it was all on tape, and he has already signed it. This is an incredibly long-winded attack on Ukraine's right to exist as a state. Is he really going to finish it up with just a declaration of DNR independence? All right, so there we have it. Should we check? Oh, now would be a good time for us to maybe check here. Let's go back to my favorite thing, flight tracker. Let's see if there's been any change in the planes. Flight tracker. Okay, there we go. Let's see what we got here. I like to check in on this every so often to see if there are any Russian Navy jets or whatever. We got a couple more planes. Okay, so once again, I'll show you. Here is the Ukraine. This is the Azov Sea of Azov. This is the Black Sea. This right here, that's Sevastopol. That is where the Russian military base is, where it's the largest Russian naval base. They have moved into the Sea of Azov? Yeah, the Sea of Azov, and they've declared a no-fly zone. So that's why there are no planes over this area. You can see all of these commercial airline planes. These planes are all flying around the outside border of the Ukraine. Nothing is happening here. This is the area. This area right here. This is where Donetsk and Luhansk is. These are the two big cities in this region that Putin is going to try and take. Now, let's check on some of these planes. Let's see what this is. Okay, that's a Turkish airline. That plane seems to be heading straight into that direction. Doesn't seem worried. Let's see what these are. Okay, Turkish Airlines. Again, we're looking for planes that show up with NANA. Okay, these are all legit planes. Is there anything, looks like anything doing anything interesting? These are all flying commercial patterns, so I think those are okay. What is this? That is UT Air. What is this? All right, see, now this is an interesting plane. So this is a plane right here that is not, it's a Boeing. What does that say? A Boeing 737 flying at 38,000 feet. It's an anonymous plane. Okay, so this plane right here, it has no origin of takeoff, no designated spot to land. We don't know anything about it. It's not an airline. It's okay. So that's interesting. That could be a drone. That could be anything. That could be, but what we know that is it's just not a civilian aircraft. So that's something right there. Let's see, what is this? Okay, see, that's a legitimate airplane. That's a UTAIR airplane. Okay. See what this is. Turkish. A lot of Turkish airline planes. Earl Airlines. Let's see. Okay, so there's only one sketchy plane. Let's look at these. Let's see what this is over Poland. Wizz Air. Okay, because this is the region over here. This is where there would be NATO buildup, NATO military. Okay, these are all commercial planes. These all seem to be pretty commercial. All right, let's move up here. What's going on with this guy? Okay. Here's a little one. Let's see what this is. Okay, that's a private jet. All right, so there's just one sketchy ass plane. What's this guy doing? He seems to be flying pretty close. All right, so this guy here, Special Flight Squadron, taking off from the military base. That's Simferopol. It's a Tupolev. So it's a Russian Special Flight Squadron. So this is a Russian military plane right here, or a Russian dignitary plane, or whatever. The information that we have, it doesn't look like a military plane. It looks like an unmarked Russian state plane. Generals, that kind of thing. It took off from the base here in Crimea. This is the military base. So that's interesting. So we don't know what that's doing. But when we see, what we're looking for is we're looking for actual fighter jets, Russian Navy jets, that kind of thing. Okay, so we can be done with that. We don't need to. But that's how the rest of my day is going to be going. The rest of my day is going to be tracking Russian Navy flights and seeing if any of them are. All right. Let's see here. Get out of that. We don't. Yeah, you know what? Maybe we'll check this out. So we'll talk about this before we switch. And you know what? I'll tell you, we're running up on 2:00, and normally we would end, but at 2:00, unless something else big happens, we'll move away from this and we'll kind of get into what the normal show would be. So, if this is killing you, I'm sorry. Witness to history. I am really enjoying this. Let's see here. I'm enjoying being a witness to history. I'm not. You know what? That's an interesting thing that I've kind of had to ask myself. War is a terrible thing, and this could really be a bad situation. But I am such a weird news junkie that just news, I get very geeked up on news safely here in the guest house. I mean, maybe if this was happening a couple of months, I'd not be quite as, so just don't, I guess I'm asking you to don't judge me. I just love history, and I love the ability to watch history unfold in front of our eyes. All right, so here, let's look at this. This is the last thing that I'll do. Where are we? Minsk, Kiev. Okay, so once again, this is looking from Russia down. Okay, right? So this is Moscow. Ooh. Wait, where's Moscow? Where's Moscow? Is that Moscow? Why is everything now suddenly in a different language? Where did my English? Is this Moscow? No, that's not Moscow. All right, let's go back. Okay. Reload that for a second here. Fast Outdoor Food says, Pugs, what is your opinion of what is going to happen if there is an invasion? Well, I would say right now, if there is an invasion, is off the table. Putin basically just said, yeah, we're going to do this. You got us. What gave it away? The 200,000 troops that we've amassed on the border over the last 5 weeks. I mean, there's basically no doubt that there is going to be an invasion. It just comes down to when. When is there going to be an invasion? What do I think will happen? Okay. I don't know. I know that the Ukrainian military will, unlike 2014 during the Crimea situation, the Ukrainian military will fight. They will defend themselves. The Ukrainian military, as Putin said, he said a lot of bullshit, but one of the true things that he said was that this is not the same Ukrainian military that it was in 2014, that this particular Ukrainian military has been built up by Western allies and friends and, all these people who have been helping them defend themselves should the evil Putin try and do exactly what he's trying to do now. So it is nowhere near as powerful as the Russian military. It's just not. However, there is always an advantage to defending your home as opposed to invading a foreign land. I suppose the argument could be made, well, how much of a foreign land is it? I mean, it's like America and Canada. It's not like they're being dropped 2,000 miles away into a desert, right? So what do I think will happen? I think that the Ukrainian military will defend themselves. I think that there will be war. I think that it will be incredibly bloody. I think it'll be a really bad war. I think it'll be nasty. And I think that after a day or so, maybe a couple of days, then it comes down to the West. It comes down to the other European nations. Do the other European nations, the NATO members, do they want to stand up and say, we are created specifically for this kind of event? Although that's a bit tricky because, as I said, Ukraine is not a card-carrying member of NATO. They are NATO adjacent. They are a NATO ally, and that's a little bit different. NATO is sworn to protect their member nations from any aggression. However, Ukraine wants to be a NATO member, and NATO has said, yeah, we'd love to have you be a member. So the big question is, what does NATO do if this becomes a thing? And let's put it this way. What if Russia just steamrolls and takes over the Ukraine and then starts rounding up all of the political leaders? What if they start rounding up Zelensky and his cabinet and all the people who have been outspoken against Kremlin interference? What happens then? Now we're talking about war crimes. Now we're talking about some real... This entire situation is dependent on the next couple of days. What will NATO do? Putin seems entirely convinced that NATO will be feckless, that NATO will just go, it's Ukraine. It's not one of our members. And what? However, Germany and England and the United States, we have been pretty consistent in what we've said these past 5 weeks. We're going to do something. We're going to do something. We're going to do something. And Putin is hearing this and going, no, you're not. No, you're not. I'm just going to take what's mine. And you bitches are just going to sit there and clutch your pearls. And I'm not even taking something that's yours. I'm taking something that used to be mine. So I don't know. So long story short, what do I think is going to happen if there's an invasion? Well, there'll be a war. There will be much ugliness. A lot of people are saying things like, well, we're going to have there's going to be a nuclear war. Putin's going to nuke Kiev, which is ridiculous. Putin doesn't want to nuke Kiev. Putin wants to exploit Kiev. Putin wants to set up shop in Kiev. He doesn't want to conquer this country and then have it be some nuclear winter wasteland. He's not going to do that. He doesn't even want to do much damage to the infrastructure because that's all shit after he occupies it that he's going to have to fix. And honestly, Russia doesn't have that much money. They are not a thriving economy. There's a whole bunch of rich people there and then a whole bunch of poor people. And then, Putin with his military. So there is absolutely, is there the potential of a nuclear accident? Absolutely. 100% of the time, whenever you're talking about nuclear capable nations, that, you ratchet up the possibility of a nuclear accident. But would it be Putin's intention to nuke the Ukraine? Absolutely not. First of all, it's their next door neighbor. All of that shit's going to just blow right in. Nah, that's not a very real concern. A crazy general, who goes rogue, I suppose, that's a real concern. And that is the concern with pissing off a nuclear power. That's why nuclear powers don't really go to war. So I don't know. World War III, very possible World War III situation. Absolutely. A massive war in Europe. I mean, I suppose the only way that this would be not a potential World War III situation is if Western Europe and NATO decides that he just wants the Ukraine. That's it. He just let him have it. He just wants the Ukraine. But then the questions will start to be, okay, so what's next? You know, Poland used to be in the Soviet Union. Czechoslovakia used to be in the Soviet. There are a whole bunch of, is he going, I mean, one by one, is he going to go back? I mean, look, you've got the wars in Chechnya, in Georgia. You know, Georgia's been fighting for Georgian independence and squashed all of that shit. So does he stop? That's the calculation that the West needs to say. Do we end this now and seek wholesale regime change in Russia and put that son of a bitch on trial for war crimes in The Hague after years and years of him being the biggest troublemaker in the world? And he really has been the biggest. I know we have propped up tin pot dictators like Kim Jong-un and Saddam Hussein. Now, those guys were propped up because they were easy to take. Well, actually, Kim Jong-un isn't really easy to take out. He's never really given anyone a reason other than he's just a dick and he says shit that's dicky. But it's like Saddam Hussein, that was an easy takeout for the West. So we had to justify us as the big giant military power going in and taking over this, again, tin pot dictator. So we had to turn him into a big giant monster of a man. And he wasn't a good guy, but he certainly wasn't like Putin. Putin has been causing problems for the West ever since he got into office and for decades before that as head of the KGB. This guy, when it was the Soviet Union, he was all in. And then when it all fell apart, he kind of changed a little bit. But make no mistake, Vladimir Putin is a guy that absolutely despises the United States of America and blames us, holds us completely responsible for any of the troubles that Russia is no longer a superpower. I know a lot of people, Russia's a superpower. They are not a superpower. They got some power. They're one of the more powerful countries in Europe. But, if the Russian military is nothing compared to the NATO forces. The NATO forces he doesn't want an all-out war with NATO. Again, Putin's calculation is that NATO is going to do nothing if he just takes the Ukraine. That's what he's banking on. He's banking that NATO won't do it. He doesn't want no NATO smoke, baby. He doesn't. He knows that he does not have the military to fight NATO. NATO is like 100 countries all coming together as one. And most of those countries, or many of those countries, are just a couple of countries away. So it's not like it's going to be difficult. Russia's going to have to fight Germany. He's going to have to fight Poland. He's going to have to fight the United States of America. He's going to have to fight the United Kingdom. He's going to have to fight France. He doesn't want that. But if NATO doesn't just clutch their pearls and go, okay, just let them have it, then yeah, this will be an all-out war in Europe. I don't know. Because of the way modern militaries are built, I don't foresee a situation where London will ever be bombed. And that's because there is a NATO. You know, there are all of these military. No Russian bombers would ever get near London. They'd be blown out of the sky over Slovakia before they ever. I mean, that's just the way the modern world is. So, it's about missile capability, and it's about, the Russian Navy was just doing exercises a couple of weeks ago in the Irish Sea, and remember the Irish fishermen backed them down. So I don't know. So that's pretty much all I think. We do not know, but we know more now than we knew when we woke up this morning. And what we know now is that Putin's intention is to recognize the Donbas as an independent state where a genocide against Russian passport holders is occurring. And that's why his 200,000 troops are on the border. He's going to go in and he's going to save those good Russian people from the evil Ukrainians who have their heads filled with all kinds of nonsense by the evil United States of America. That, in a nutshell, is what that speech was. That's what he told the people of Russia. That's why we're doing this. So, all right. There it is. Right now, Putin signs decree recognizing separatist areas of Ukraine as independent. Remember, we watched the so-called live video where we said, now I will convene and I will have a meeting and we will decide. And if I decide so, I will sign. And then they immediately went to it. So it was the tape. It wasn't live the way it was presented through RT, Russian propaganda. Oh, so funny. These people are so funny. Okay. So I'm going to give you a break now. We're going to move on from that. We're going to go, that was the big breaking news that was happening all day long. We've just done 2 hours on this. I'd also like to tell you that I'm going to be coming back. I'm going to be, if anything happens throughout the day, we will be doing a Pillow Talk, Pugs and Parker show tonight. So, that may be nonsense. Or honestly, if you remember on Thursday, when I said at the end of the show, this is the end of the final Pillow Talk show, that we were going to, I was going to go and I was going to monitor the situation. That was really the start in earnest of my 4-day now obsession with watching every little detail that is happening here. I said that I was going to go watch the war in Ukraine start, and Parker, he didn't get into it. He's like, that's not going to happen. That's not going to happen. This is all stupid. Because, I'm afraid of the conversation that I'm going to have with James Parker tonight, because I fully expect him to be one of these Fox News, Tucker Carlson parakeets who is going to talk about how Putin is misunderstood and that we truly are the aggressors, which I just can't believe. I hope that's not the case. But that was the story. That's the feeling that I got when Parker was like, it's not going to happen, because that's exactly what the Fox News people were saying. Because, a lot of the Fox News, I don't know about a lot, but Tucker Carlson in particular has been Putin's best friend now for a couple of years in defense of Donald Trump and, all that kind of stuff. Tucker Carlson has been a Putin apologist. So, and so is AM talk radio. And that's why there are so many people, so many American citizens who are honestly, did you see, there are shirts that these MAGA people wear that say, I'd rather be a Russian than a Democrat. Are you kidding me? How about an American? How about recognize it's not even a complicated history between the United States and Russia. It's not complicated. It's not. It's pretty cut and dry. They had missiles pointed at us for 50 years. They were saber rattling for 20 years before that. This idea that there are people in the United States, that is Putin's greatest accomplishment. That through remember, he was KGB, man. This guy knows exactly how to psychologically, and he knows how to screw people. He knows how to get in their heads. He knows how to make them believe disinformation. He knows how to make them. And it's been years and years of a coordinated Russian disinformation campaign targeting certain aspects of the American political population. And now you see all of these fringe Russian-backed news sources. Oh, they're going to say they're Russian-backed, but the guy on YouTube with the American flag behind him talking about how the Democrats are this and the liberals are that. I mean, all of this political division, not all of it, I shouldn't say all of it, much of the political division that we face in this country can be traced directly back to a disinformation and propaganda campaign that Russia and Putin has been executing now for 2 decades. The separating of the American people to get us at each other's throats. I mean, we had a president of the United States stand on a stage with Vladimir Putin, and he was directly asked by a member of the press if he asked Putin about something that he did, something that was backed up by U.S. and Western intelligence, and the president of the United States standing next to Vladimir Putin said to the world, I looked in his eyes and I believe him. Actually, no, that was George W. Bush. George W. Bush said, I looked in his eyes and saw. Trump said, well, I asked him about it and he told me and I believe him. The president of the United States believed what Putin said over what his own defense apparatus was telling him, what his own intelligence apparatus was telling him, what the world, our allies' intelligence was telling him. He said that so, I mean, when you see people on Twitter or in any of these chats and they're saying stuff like, Russia's not bad, or, I'd rather be with Putin than a Democrat, that's fucking madness. That is somebody who's got fucking liver sausage for a brain, who's been completely bamboozled by a propaganda campaign that originated in the Kremlin. That's all I'm going to say about that. Oh, am I a liberal? Well, maybe I'm liberal-leaning. Maybe I'm progressive-minded. Maybe I consider myself a left-leaning centrist. But you know what I am? Cut all of that bullshit out. I'm an American. I know what team I'm on. Do you? Do you know what team you're on? Yikes. I'm triggered because I'm watching. I have a particular window open, which is showing a live stream coverage of this. And there are currently 13,000 people watching this stream that I'm on. And I am seeing people talking about how Putin is awesome. America is evil. All of these people with names, which are fake names. Dan Smith with the American flag. The United States is the aggressor in this whole thing, and Putin is really justified. Dan Smith is saying that with the American flag. Do I believe that's truly Dan Smith? No, I think it's probably Russian bots. I believe it's probably Russian agents who are now hitting all of these chat rooms, who are hitting all of these threads, who are posting on Twitter, posing as Americans, trying to convince other stupid, mush-brained Americans that, hey, be like me. Look, I've got a flag, so you got to trust me. I love America, and Putin's right. Not the West. There's a genocide going on. There's no fucking genocide going on. He's only been talking about a genocide now for a couple of days. Meanwhile, he's had hundreds of thousands of troops aligned on the border for 5 weeks. So you're telling me that you anticipated the genocide? Or are you just making that up now that you need an excuse to roll the tanks through the fields and over the border? How do I switch gears now? How the hell do I switch gears now? I'll show you how. Breaking news. Putin signs decree recognizing separatist areas of Ukraine as independent. Again, that would be like Canada signing a decree saying that Maine is no longer a part of America and that Maine is now independent. And, they're going to want to join us, even though they're independent. Okay. And again, I'll be covering this all day, and should anything big happen, I'll jump in. We don't have to wait till 9 o'clock tonight. I'm fascinated by this. Well, you're taking it all too seriously. No, I'm not. I love history. I love that we exist in a time where we can all be witness to history as it unfolds in real time before our eyes. The connectivity of the globe has allowed me to sit here in my house in Highland Park, Texas, and read and watch videos shot by people on the ground in Luhansk, Ukraine. Showing tanks rolling through and showing people shooting from windows at these tanks. That's amazing. Other generations never had that kind of access. Other generations used to have to just wait for the 5:30 news or the 10 p.m. news to get their updates on this stuff and then be told, spoon-fed by some process, something that's been governed, something that's been, completely formulated and decided this is the story we're going to tell people. That's not the way it is anymore. We can now see all kinds of different pieces of information for ourselves, and we can process it for ourselves. And some of it's going to be bullshit. And hopefully there's enough enough of us who are smart enough to be able to go, yeah, that doesn't seem right. That seems like bullshit. And also, hopefully, enough of us aren't just simply going to believe the shit we want to believe and take it all as a whole and sort of go, okay, so that seemed likely. Okay, that seemed like, see, again, like what does seem likely? Does it seem likely that the Ukrainian military, as Putin has been claiming, is shelling their own cities of Donetsk and Luhansk after being completely surrounded by the more powerful Russian military? Does that seem likely? Does it seem likely that the Ukraine military would go, oh, well, the Russian military is right outside our front door. All right. Let's now choose the time to start victimizing the people of our own cities. Doesn't seem likely, does it? No, of course not. It's stupid. Now, had they been doing that, had there been rumors of that happening, had there been social media accounts documenting that actually happening, and then in the weeks afterwards, we started to see a buildup of Russian forces, then yeah, that's how that would happen. But you don't look at a massive military ready to kick your ass and go, I'm going to start it. Let's go. I mean, what are they, drunk? I keep trying to segue here. All right. I honestly, Sally says, I'll be watching tonight for the fireworks. I don't know. I'm really, if I'm just doing war coverage, then I'll do it by myself. I mean, because I really don't want, I'd be interested to see what Fox News is covering right now. If Fox News is doing wall coverage of this, I would be surprised. The way every other responsible news organization in the Western world is. Fox News covering the truckers in Ottawa, vaccine mandates. What Fox News just trying to. Also, be interested to see how they spin. You know what? No, I don't want to go into that. I just. Be on the lookout for so-called American patriots who are suddenly taking up the argument for Putin tonight, which is just insane. Just insane. Fast Outdoor Food said, does it seem likely that America would invade Iraq when Saudi Arabia people hijacked planes and ran into the Twin Towers and the Pentagon? Yeah, that's a different situation. I mean, look, we're don't get me started on the Iraq War. I was never for the Iraq War. That was a complete waste of time. Afghanistan was who we were supposed to go after. And yeah, fast outdoor food makes a good case. Saudi Arabia was actually the place of origin for most of the 9/11 hijackers, but we gave them a pass because they're our friends and they play nice. And the Saudi royal family and their influence in that region of the world has been something that we've used from time to time, from stopping that entire part of the world from just going up in flames. So I don't know. That's a different argument. Okay, so let's talk about today. Hey, let's just restart the show. What do you say? Today is February the 21st, the 52nd day of the year in the Gregorian calendar. There are 313 days remaining until the end of the year. What makes moment of joy? Fuck that. We ain't doing a moment of joy today. I just don't feel like there's any reason to do a moment of joy. But let's talk about what the history of this day is, shall we? On this day in 1947 in New York City, Edwin Land demonstrates the first instant camera. The first Polaroid, the Polaroid Land camera, was used for the first time today in 1947. Happy birthday, NASCAR! On this day in 1948, NASCAR is incorporated. On this day in 1958, the peace symbol, the peace symbol with the circle and all that. On this day in 1958, the peace symbol was commissioned and was designed in protest against atomic weapons research. Gerald Holtham is the guy who created the peace symbol on this day in 1958. On this day in 1965, Malcolm X is assassinated while giving a talk at the Audubon Ballroom in Harlem, as depicted in the Spike Lee film Malcolm X. On this day in 1972, United States President Richard Nixon visits China. That was a big deal. That was a big deal back then. I was thinking about, well, actually, I guess the next one we'll do. 1972, the Soviet unmanned spaceship Luna 20 lands on the moon for the first time. Ha ha! Stupid Soviets. 3 years after us, guess who won the space race to the moon? On this day in 1975, Watergate Scandal, former United States Attorney John Mitchell and former White House aide H.R. Haldeman and John Ehrlichman are sentenced to prison on this day in 1975. Isn't that a cute scandal? Watergate is such a cute scandal by today's. It's so adorable. That's like pound for pound. Watergate is a garbage overreaction compared to the scandals that we've had in this since. I mean, there's just much bigger ones. And unfortunately, they blew their wad on Watergate. So Watergate seems like it's the high bar. So everything that's came after it is like way bigger and more sinister than Watergate. But they set the bar so high with Watergate that it's like, but I mean, it's a huge deal that these people were sent to prison. We've sent a whole bunch of politicians to prison, a whole bunch. Scooter Libby, most notably, just in the Bush administration, and then there's a whole bunch of people that are probably going to be going to prison over the next year or so from the last administration. We'll see. Some birthdays. We got some birthdays. Who's celebrating a birthday? John Lewis. Mr. Good Trouble himself was born on this day in 1940. He died in 2020. Born on this day in 1943, David Geffen, American businessman. Geffen Records, DreamWorks, right? SGK? Wasn't that the other one? Spielberg, Geffen, Katzenberg? Wasn't that? Whatever. Geffen is like an entertainment billionaire. David Geffen, happy birthday. Born on this day in 1946, dead in 2016. I included this because, he still bums me out every time I see this. Alan Rickman. Happy birthday, Alan Rickman. Alan Rickman's dead. I hate that Alan Rickman's dead. Alan Rickman was so cool. God, was he a great actor. Born on this day in 1955. Now, this guy, I recently last week, and I was going to do it on the Pillow Talk show. We were going to talk about it, but for some reason we didn't get to it. Kelsey Grammer, born on this day in 1955. He is supposed to be a major asshole. I found this article that was all about all of these people from Kelsey Grammer's past that are coming out going, oh yeah, he's the biggest dick you've ever met. Oh, he's a complete jagoff. Oh, that guy is, that arrogant character from Frasier and from Cheers? Yeah, that's really him, except worse, because he's a big crybaby too. I kind of like Kelsey Grammer, but doesn't surprise me to learn that he's a total dick. Born on this day in 1964, astronaut twins, Mark and Scott Kelly. Mark is a U.S. senator. He's pilot, astronaut. And his brother Scott, who is, Scott Kelly, one is a senator and one set like the record for longest time in space. Whatever. Happy birthday. Well, from time to time, I like to throw a bone out to my buddy Aaron. I gave him Brandon Boyd from Incubus's birthday, and then I think I also gave him some motorcycle racer guy that he likes. I gave him that one. I got another one for him. Tony Meola, American soccer player and manager. Wasn't he the long-haired SpongeBob SquarePants shaped goalie for the American national team for a while? Born on this day in 1969. Now, this one I'm only mentioning. You don't know who she is, but my God, she's got a Wikipedia page. She's got a pretty nice Wikipedia page, and I didn't know this. Kathy Richardson, Chicago singer-songwriter. She more than that. She went to Broadway. She played Janis Joplin on Broadway, and she's an incredible singer. I used to see Kathy Richardson every week back in the 90s when she was just playing bars and clubs. She's a super talent. She's like one of those people where I remember seeing her like just at the very start when she was just like opening with just her and a guitar. And I remember thinking, holy crap, that girl is going to be a superstar. That girl has a voice. Well, I mean, she played Janis Joplin on Broadway. So they were like, okay, you can do the Joplin songs. She's incredible. She was really great. Born on this day in 1969. Happy birthday, Kathy Richardson. Born on this day in 1978, Kumail Nanjiani. comedian, Pakistani-American stand-up, writer, podcaster. He's very funny. He is so funny. That guy is one of these dudes that, what was the most famous from? Silicon Valley, I guess, probably. Most famous is one of the regulars, one of the stars of Silicon Valley on HBO. Born on this day in 1979. I couldn't think of her name the other day when I was talking about the Hulu series, Pam and Tommy. And I was talking about how it's the rare occasion where you have an actress portraying a legendary smoke show in Pam Anderson, and the actress who is portraying the legendary smoke show is actually hotter than the person that they're portraying, which is what we're seeing with Pam and Tommy. This what's it, Lily Lee? I don't know what her name is. I have no idea. She's some chick from Downton Abbey, but she is playing Pam Anderson, and she is better looking than Pam Anderson. Pam Anderson is a 10 plus. This girl is an 11. It goes to 11. This girl is like, holy cow. I mean, even if you're not watching Pam and Tommy on Hulu, just check it out to see how incredibly gorgeous this girl playing Pam Anderson is. So I was talking about that, and I used the example of typically when people play these legendary beauties, the actresses that play them aren't nearly as beautiful as and I used the example of Audrey Hepburn, that this particular actress played Audrey Hepburn. And even though this actress is beautiful, she's not nearly as beautiful as Audrey Hepburn, the person she was playing. And I couldn't think of her name. And she's having a birthday today. And it's Jennifer Love Hewitt. There it is. Jennifer Love Hewitt, born on this day in 1979. Portrayed Audrey Hepburn in a movie. And Jennifer Love Hewitt is beautiful, but she's not... You know who probably could have pulled off Audrey Hepburn better than Jennifer Love Hewitt? Natalie Portman or Keira Knightley. They probably could have gotten closer. Neither of them are as beautiful as Audrey Hepburn was, but both they could have gotten closer. Born on this day in 1979, shares a birthday with Jennifer Love Hewitt, Jordan Peele. Of course, Key and Peele. Let me ask you this. Did you guys think that when we were watching Key and Peele on Comedy Central and all those funny and awesome sketches, did you ever think that we were watching one of the future great filmmakers of modern times in Jordan Peele? Did we think that? Because Jordan Peele is most commonly referred to as the new Hitchcock, and that's some pretty high praise. But Jordan Peele of Key and Peele, the one that wasn't tall and thin, the one that was kind of stockier, that guy is like the most powerful one of the most powerful directors in Hollywood. He's up there in the same rare air as other modern auteurs like Quentin Tarantino or he's not at Scorsese yet, but he's that is crazy. I still, whenever I watch old clips of Key and Peele, and I do watch a lot of them because my son loves Key and Peele, I'm like, you believe that guy is like, you know what? The other interesting thing is, it must be a thing with like great comedians, because two of the most bankable, two of the most applauded and critically acclaimed directors in Hollywood today are both silly comedians who turned directors. Jordan Peele, silly comedian who turned into this amazing director, and Taika Waititi, who is personally my favorite filmmaker right now. I mean, I still have a soft spot for Paul Thomas Anderson, but if it was like, hey, you can see there's two movies out. One is made by Paul Thomas Anderson, and one is the new Taika Waititi movie. You can choose one and only one. I'm going with Taika. I'm going with that one. That doesn't mean that I can't lose because I love both of them. But yeah, man. Jordan Peele and Taika Waititi are both as incredibly respected as serious filmmakers as it gets right now in Hollywood. And they're both silly, ridiculous, slapstick comedians, which is so crazy. Born on this day in 1987. This is an interesting one. Born on this day in 1987, Elliot Page, Canadian actor. Now, why is this interesting? Well, because of course, I'm gonna dead name Elliot Page. Someone should probably throw me off in the gulag because I'm about to dead name somebody. Ellen Page. Ellen Page, the star of Juno, the young lady actress who then transitioned into Elliot Page, who is out there acting, now. I don't know that Elliot. I don't know. I haven't seen Elliot Page. I think the big test for Elliot Page will be when there's a show on Prime that I just love that the late Ellen Page used to be a major cast member, Umbrella Academy. So Ellen Page was one of the primary star. Ellen Page, she played Natasha or whatever her name was. I don't know. She was like the central character in Umbrella Academy, and Umbrella Academy is still in production. But the central character, who was a female character played by the actress Ellen Page, how's that going to happen? Because Ellen Page is no longer an actress, a female. He has transitioned. Because it's not they, because it's a he. He's a he. He has transitioned into Elliot Page. So will Elliot Page, in the next season of Umbrella Academy, be portraying a female? See, I'm just very But here's my question about it. I don't get it. It's very confusing. Whatever, man. I like that show, and I like her. I like him. There you go. Respect the decision. I like him. I liked him in Juno when it was a her. But here's the interesting thing. Elliot Page wasn't born on this day in 1987. Ellen Page was born on this day in 1987. Do people, and I'm not being snarky about this, I'm really wondering if this is proper. Like, do you, when you give up your name, like, dead name, that's what they say. So Ellen Page is the dead name, and Ellen Page was born in 1987. Did Ellen Page die on the day that the official transformation to Elliot Page happened? And if so, isn't that Elliot Page's birthday? Like, isn't Elliot Page just like 2 or 3 years old, 2 years old or something like that? I don't know. I wonder how that is. And I'm not trying to be cynical. I'm asking, look, it's a changing world. I'm asking a legitimate question, because it says here that Elliot Page was born on this day in 1987. Ellen Page was born on this day in 1987, and Ellen Page is dead. Elliot Page is right? Or is that just the way that, I don't know. I'm not going to go to war over it. I'm waiting for someone to explain it to me, and then I'll go, okay, thank you, because I had questions about that. I'm not going to say that my way is right, because I don't know shit about this shit, obviously. Whatever you want to do, man. Well, I'll just get along. It's all cool with me. Just don't come to my house and steal my stuff, and don't start a fight. Don't try and murder me. We'll be fine. You just do you, and I'll respect your choices. Dead on this day. We do have some dead, we like to do the dead on this day. Oh, no plane crashes. I know that April, our girl April, is flying tomorrow. No plane crashes tomorrow. We already looked that up. No plane crashes today. So good for her. So it seems to be a safe win. Just don't fly over the Donbas region of the Ukraine, because I imagine that's going to be a little bit sketchy now for the foreseeable future. Dead on this day, Billy Graham. Billy Graham, the pride of Wheaton, Illinois. Billy Graham. Died on this day in 2018. I don't really know much about Billy Graham, other than I know that he's a very important, very influential guy. I mean, I know he's a Jesus guy. I know he's a preacher, a reverend, and all that kind of stuff. Billy Graham died on this day in 2018. Died on this day in 2019. Stanley Donen. Stanley Donen is a legendary, iconic American filmmaker. Singing in the Rain, Charade, Take Me Out to the Ball Game, a whole bunch, any like dancing movies. That Gene Kelly, who's like Gene Kelly's best friend. So it was a big Gene Kelly movie Stanley Donen was directing. He died on this day in 2019. Also died on this day in 2019, the Torker, Peter Tork. That's a shitty one. Peter Tork. Peter Tork of the Monkees. I recently watched this whole documentary about the Monkees. It was interesting. And, Peter Tork was actually like the legit, like Davy Jones was a song and dance man. He was an actor first and he did musicals and all that stuff. He wasn't like a guy in bands. Mickey Dolenz was a television actor who had to learn how to, play instruments and all that stuff. Mickey Dolenz, Davy Jones, they were not. Mike Nesmith was an actual musician. He was a guy that actually, played instruments, and he was a poet and all that stuff. But Peter Tork was the real musical guy. Peter Tork was the guy that was, in LA at the time, playing in all kinds of other bands. He and a penniless Stephen Stills of the Buffalo Springfield, soon to be of Crosby, Stills, Nash. He and Stephen Stills were living together, and Stephen Stills, his agent at his record company, said, look, now that the Buffalo Springfield is falling apart, you need something to do. I heard about they're doing these auditions for a show called The Monkees. Stephen Stills, why don't you go down there and try out for it? So Stephen Stills went and tried out for The Monkees, and he had jacked up teeth. And the people said, no, you know what? You're everything that we need as far as being a musician and being able to sing. You can carry a tune wonderfully and you can play all these instruments. He goes, you're great, but your teeth are too jacked up, so we're going to pass. And Stephen Stills went home and told his roommate, Peter Tork, who was like really cute, like all the girls liked him. He said, yeah, they don't want me, but go ahead, go down there. And that's how Peter Tork became a monkey, because they didn't want Stephen Stills. And Peter Tork was legitimately considered one of the better musicians in that group of people that were hanging out. But because he became a monkey, he never really got to fulfill any kind of true musical accomplishments. I mean, the Monkees were great, and the Monkees are an iconic and legendary band, but the Monkees are never thought of as being, great innovators or whatever. And Peter Tork, had he maybe been outside of the Monkees, he may have gone on to do any number of things with legit, musical acts and stuff. He was always a little bit bitter about that, but All right, what is today the day of? Today is the day of. Let's see here. Monday, February 21st. Today is President's Day. Happy President's Day. I don't know. Kids are off school. Banks, everything's closed. It's kind of national holiday. Happy President's Day. It's also National Grain-Free Day. I don't know what that means. It's just grain-free day. Don't eat grain. I am off my diet while my kid is here. Cheat day turns into like cheat long weekend because the kid's off school, and so I'm off my diet, and so I might actually be ingesting some grain today. I don't care about National Grain-Free Day. Screw you. I'm going to have grain. You know what? I'm going to show my support for the Ukraine, and I'm going to just eat raw grain out of burlap sacks. I'm going to go sit in my backyard, and I'm just going to take a spoon. I'm going to break open one of those canvas sacks, and I'm just going to start spoon feeding grain direct from the Ukraine right into my mouth. Ukraine, I believe, is the world's largest grain producer. Maybe it's America, but maybe Ukraine is second. Whatever. A lot of grain in the Ukraine. A lot of grain in the Ukraine. Crazy insane. Got much grain. It's National Sticky Bun Day. I can't tell you that I'm off. I can't tell you that I'm off my diet and then be like, oh, ooh, it's National Sticky Bun Day. Man, that's good. Man, I want a sticky bun. All right, there you go. That's the National Day of. Let's see here. Quickly, I'll run through. I can't be going this late because I can't really see if the kid. I can see into the game room, but there's this tree that obstructs me. Let me do a quick run through on what's trending. And then we'll get you up to speed that way. Although, the big deal was the Ukraine situation and Putin and all that kind of stuff. And oh my God, look at this. We got some real stupid shit trending. I can already tell. Boris Johnson and that. Putin trending number one. Ukraine, Putin recognizes independence of pro-Russian territories. We saw that live here. President's Day is trending number 2. Paul Farmer is trending number 3. Who is Paul Farmer? Dr. Paul Farmer is a renowned American physician and co-founder of Partners in Health. He's died at the age of 62. Oh, that's terrible. Ted Lasso is trending. I saw why this is trending because somebody said that although I've never seen Ted Lasso, the people who like Ted Lasso seem to be childless adults who also enjoy Disney World. And that was basically... that was the last we ever heard from the person who posted that because that person got shit hammered. And that's why Ted Lasso is trending number 4. One person had an off-the-cuff, observation about the sort of person that likes Ted Lasso, and the entire world came down like a bag of bricks on them. Medina Spirit is trending. Medina Spirit has been disqualified as the winner of the 147th Kentucky Derby. Isn't this like, didn't we already know this? Oh no, that was months ago. This was a big story. Okay, so apparently it's finally come down. Truth Social is trending. Former President Donald Trump's Truth Social app launched. I signed up. I want to be an early adopter to Truth Social. I just want to get in there. I'm thinking of creating a fake persona and just being as nuts as... See, this is like, you could be my control group. Okay. You people are hearing me say this. I have this idea that I want to join Truth Social and just create this character on Truth Social who is a maniac, like totally QAnon, totally, and just see where that'll go. See if I can build something from that. And you guys are my control group because after I'm exposed as a fraud, then I can come back to all of you people here and I can go, they knew what I was doing. I told people what I was doing. Hank the Tank is trending. This is a fun story. Hank the Tank is a 500-pound bear that is apparently wreaking havoc in California. He's just walking into people's houses and eating stuff out of their refrigerator. He's a 500-pound bear. How do you just not shoot that thing? Goran Dragic is trending. He's signing with the Brooklyn Nets. Crimea is trending. A whole bunch of stuff is trending. There's Boris Johnson again. Logan Paul is trending. Do I even want to bother with? Do I even want to bother with this, or do we just? Well, right. Fine, if you're going to make me check out what Logan Paul is all about. Yeah, I don't know. I'm not going to scroll down too far to get to any reason for Logan Paul to be trending because as I've learned, I'm looking at Twitter right now. There is no reason for shit to ever be trending on Twitter. There doesn't need to be a reason. They're just things trend. All right, let's switch over. Let's look at Google Trends. Let's see what's trending there. See if there's anything big. Juwan Howard. I can talk about Juwan Howard. Did you see that? Juwan Howard, head coach of the Michigan Wolverines, during the handshake situation yesterday with the University of Wisconsin. He hauled off and punched an assistant coach for the University of Wisconsin. What a dick. Southside! Juwan Howard's a thug. Whatever. I don't know what. So I don't know if he's been suspended or what. Actually, let me just take a look at that. Like I said, man, I woke up this morning early, and I've just been doing nothing but catching up on all the shit that occurred in the Ukraine and Russia. That's my main focus. Juwan Howard's behavior puts future at Michigan in doubt. You know, I was after this happened yesterday, there was a lot of people saying, he'll never coach again. He's going to kick that. And then there were like some people going, you don't. And it's young people, right? Like you can tell it's like an 18, 19-year-old kid or something. You don't understand how popular he is in Michigan. They could never get rid of him. And, you know, all of us old heads are like, dude, have you never heard of Woody Hayes? You have no idea how popular and powerful Woody Hayes was at Ohio State when he hauled off and hit a player in 1978 or 79. And that was before social media. That was before the woke mob. That was before people could put pressure from all corners on. They knocked Woody Hayes out of the record. He's like a dude that didn't even exist now. This was one of the most important coaches in the history of Ohio State football. He made one mistake and he was gone. So all of these kids who are saying, Juwan Howard's untouchable, man, know your history, Junior. Know your history. We'll see. Michigan versus Wisconsin fight. What punishment does Wolverines coach Juwan Howard deserve for the role? I don't know. I don't care. I hate Michigan. I'm torn because I hate Michigan, but I like Juwan Howard. I've always liked him. He's like one of the great Chicago Public League basketball players in history. I remember, was it was Dion, him and Dion, not Deion Sanders, Dion Thomas. It was Juwan Howard and Dion Thomas and Tom Kleinschmidt. And although he was the white kid from the suburbs, but yeah, that was 90s Chicago Public League basketball. As I've said before, Chicago Public League basketball in Chicago is the way high school football is here in Texas. Gym rats. See, now I need to know. Now, like, was it, who was player of the year? It was Juwan Howard who was player of the year. It had to, it was Dion Thomas was like a year or two older than Juwan Howard. And when Dion Thomas left, then the two big guys were Juwan Howard and Tom Kleinschmidt. And it was, I believe it was Juwan Howard. Anyway, nobody cares. Nobody cares! All right, that's going to do it. There's nothing. I'm the Chick-fil-A bacon sandwich. Chick-fil-A smokehouse barbecue bacon sandwich returns to restaurants. There you go. That's trending. That sounds like a big deal. All right, I'm going to get out of here. Like I said, I'll be sending out like, subscribe, follow, as this potential war that we might see happening here over the next couple of hours gets closer and closer. I could just pop on here at any minute and we'll cover the war and we'll watch video of, stuff being sent from the front. And I'll have, my usual commentary. I do want to check in one more time on my flight radar to see if we've got any changes. See if there's any new changes. Let me do this one more time. See, look at this. This is what I mean by like the future. We're living in the future right now. We can pull this stuff up and we can look at all of the planes. Okay, so again, here's the Ukraine. This area right here where there are no yellow. This is where all the trouble is. There are no commercial airliners. There's no other airplanes flying here. You see, this is the route that they're going. They're going around. Okay, what is this here in Moldova? This little guy looks weird. He is... Okay, that's a legit plane. Don't need to deal with him. What's this? What's happening here in Kiev? Giuseppe Gadafulu, plane spotters. Wizz Air. Wizz Air. See what this one is. No, that's not the same one. All right. Nothing. It all looks pretty calm, man. There is nothing sketchy. There's nothing. This is Azov. This is the Sea of Azov, where there is a no-fly established because the Russian Navy has moved into position here off the coast of the eastern regions of Ukraine. So there's no planes here. Black Sea. They're pretty much avoiding this whole area. All of these are flying away, so that's good. Let's see what this guy is. Oh, okay. Is this the... Oh, look at that. The last time we checked in on this, this is the Russian Special Flight Squadron plane, the unmarked Russian plane that took off from the naval base in Sevastopol, Crimea. Doesn't seem like it's traveling all that fast, does it? All right, so that's still out there. And again, you know what it is because we've got the place of origin because the every plane that takes off from a military base in this region is being clocked, but we don't know where it's going. All of the commercial flights, we know here, I'll just pick one at random. We know where they're all going. See, this is Frankfurt to Delhi. This one here is Manchester in the UK to whatever the hell that is. But yeah, that one we don't have any. We don't know what's up with this bitch. What's this one? We don't know. Azimuth. Where's it? This is this him? Where'd the one go that? Oh, this guy. Is that him? Yeah, there he is. All right. So this is the guy. This is the interesting Russian Special Flight Squadron. We don't know what that is. That means it's. I don't know. Maybe I'll figure out what that is. But sometimes you can find like U.S. Air Force planes, Russian Navy planes. Let's see if there's any U.S. Air Force planes in the air. No, they would be somewhere around this area. What's this? No. Guys, I know this is incredibly boring. I could do this all day. I will now, when I sign off here, I will just be doing nothing but looking at these planes, trying to figure out what plane is what. Okay, this one came out of the Ukraine. That's a Dubai Air. That guy flew right over the guts of Ukraine. He ain't afraid. Okay. All right, so here's Moscow. See how this is all happening in Moscow. See if there's anything interesting. Planes coming out of Moscow, heading towards Ukraine. I'll pull this closer. All right, let's see what is this? Flyjet. What is this? And this wouldn't be strange to see Russian military planes in here because it's Moscow. I mean, they're safely over Russian airspace. They belong there. That's what they do. But when you start seeing the military planes being tracked closer to the area where we're having some issues, that's when you get an indication that something's about to pop off. And again, the only interesting plane that we have over here is that one, that Special Flight Squadron, an unmarked Russian plane. That's probably, it's a dignitary plane. Probably like a general or somebody is on that. There's a little one flying that way over the Ukraine. That is, nope, that's a normal one. What is this one? Okay, there's a little one coming out of the Ukraine. All right, I'm gonna do one more. Let me try one more time to see if I can find this American drone that goes up in Fort 11. No matches found. Try checking the spelling. All right. The other thing that's interesting playing around with this flight tracker map is that, like yesterday, I'll give you an example. I was following a Russian Navy jet that was flying, and I noticed it. I noticed to click on it and to watch its path because this area right here, the Sea of Azov, this is where the Russian military is, or the Russian Navy is, and it's a no-fly zone. Russia has said that if you fly over there, we're going to blow you out of the sky, which is why all this commercial airline traffic is avoiding it. But suddenly a plane popped up in here, and I clicked on it last night, and it turned out it was a Russian Navy jet. And it was looked like, like a Top Gun type jet. I don't know if it was a MiG. I don't remember what it was called. I don't even know if they use those anymore. But it was a Russian Navy jet, and I tracked it all the way up to right about here, right where. So it came out of the Sea of Azov, and it got over land, and then just about the point where it would have briefly crossed over into eastern Ukraine, it turned off its transponder and disappeared from the map. See? And I was like, oh man, that's something. Because that's what we're seeing here. We're seeing these are all the plane's transponders that are showing up on this map. So when a plane takes off from an area where it's a no-fly zone, and then it's designated as a Russian military plane, a Russian Navy plane, and it goes over the water, the no-fly zone, for a period of time, but then just as it reaches land, it disappears because the transponder's been turned off. They're into some bullshit. All right, so I'll be watching that, and that's how it'll begin. It'll all begin. It's not going to begin with tanks rolling into towns, just blowing up buildings and stuff. Again, Putin's not interested in having a major infrastructure rebuild after his goal of taking over the Ukraine is achieved, because that's what he wants. He doesn't want to blow everything up. He wants to use everything. He wants the roads to be passable. He wants to be able to exploit Ukraine. So what's going to happen is the very first signs of war is going to be airstrikes. It will be Russian military planes coming into Ukrainian airspace and taking out Ukrainian military defenses. The airstrikes, the air superiority that Russia can inflict on Ukraine is frightening. So that'll be the first thing. So that's why I'm watching these planes. That's why I'm watching these things so closely. And it's a reasonable question to say, well, if Russian military planes actually cross over into the border and begin to take out Ukrainian defensive installations before the land invasion, why would those planes have their transponders on? It's a good question. They may not. But I'm just following this as it goes. So we'll see. They would definitely have their transponders on over Russian airspace, because the transponders aren't for us, these people watching on these flight tracker services. That's not what the transponders are for. The transponders serve a purpose. In case the planes crash, they know how to find them. Or in case there's some kind of problem, they know how to find them. So if they do turn off the transponders and go stealth, or however you want to phrase it, if they do that, it's going to be because they're about to do something that they don't want to be seen doing. So, but up until that moment, they will have their transponders on. So we will be able to see these planes as they take off, and if there's any kind of a formation. All right, that's it. So that's what we're gonna do. I'm gonna be following this. It's 3:00 today. I thank you for bearing with me. I thank you for putting up with Putin in his longest speech that he's ever made in the 20 plus years that he's been in charge there. But we finally got to where we wanted to be. We wanted to see what he was going to say, and he has declared the Donbas region independent, which means he doesn't recognize it as a part of the Ukraine anymore. And he's going to go in and defend the independent people of the Donbas from completely fabricated Ukrainian aggression on his way to Kyiv or wherever it is. All right. You can support the show. We are in the final week. We got one of these months where it's like comes up too quick. 28. I hate February. I hate the month of February. 28 days. You're robbing me of 3 days. You can help support the show in any way. Oh, speaking of that, and this is just a fun fact. This is not because I'm pitching for donations to keep the show going, although I am. But the dude that I watch, one of the main guys that I watch for breaking news coverage on all this, and you guys should check it out too. I cannot, just don't give him any money. Don't give him any money. If you got any money for that kind of thing, give it to this show. Give it to your friend, old Uncle Pugs. Agenda Free TV on YouTube. Steve Lookner. You can also follow him at Lookner on Twitter and all that stuff. But Agenda Free TV is, in my estimation, the finest true breaking news coverage you will find anywhere. It doesn't matter what it is. This dude just does this from his house, and he anything that's, he's been all up on this stuff, and he's been great. And there's a number of people who have been great on this, and I've been watching a lot of it. But he has been terrific, and it's not just this kind of stuff. If a rapper gets shot dead in Memphis, he goes live immediately with the breaking news. School shootings, live immediately. Plane crashes, live immediately. He's just so great. So if you really want to, find some truly, and he every single time he scoops mainstream media by hours on stories. So when I say that I have all these alerts, he's one of the people that I have alerts on my phone. Whenever he goes live, I go, oh, something's happening. I better turn off CNN, Fox News, or MSNBC because they ain't going to be talking about this for 2 hours. It's starting and it's popping up now, and he goes instantaneously. So anyway, I've been watching him. I've been watching him over the weekend. I've been checking in. Yesterday, he did a 12-hour straight stream. 12 hours straight. And I wasn't even counting. Just by my estimation, this is just me ballparking it. On Sunday alone, for his 12-hour stream, I counted at least $10,000 in donations. This guy. Now, granted, he's got thousands of listeners. I believe at the or viewers. I believe at the peak yesterday, he had 13,000 people watching his live coverage from all around the world. But man, there were dudes dropping like $500, 500, and I just amazing. And I'm not saying I'm not. I mean, we also do that, but we don't to that extent. But what I'm saying is, man, it's inspiring that just some dude. You know, I've only been doing this for a couple of months. He's been doing it for like 4 years now, maybe even longer than that. So, you know, God love him. But talk about aspirational. Talk about something that's inspiring to get me out of bed every single day to try and build this into something more. And we don't have any viewers on that level, and I need to do a couple of things to change that. But man, what an incredible! That was like $10,000 on one day, and then on Saturday I was counting. It was over five. I would say easily that he's probably made $20,000, $25,000 in the last 4 days doing his news coverage. And man, God love him because he is terrific. He is great at what he does. I am such a fan. So you can check that out. Agenda Free TV. I think it's some of the best live breaking news coverage that's available anywhere. And he's such a nerd. We call ourselves Look Nerds because he's such a dork. He's such a news junkie dork. He puts a little shirt on and a tie, but he's good, man. He's good. He's non-divisive. He doesn't do politics. He does news. He does coverage of breaking events. So check him out. He's wonderful, and he deserves all the success that he's having. That is understood. All right, I'm leaving. Love you guys. We'll see you later tonight. And also be checking back because I'll jump in if there's anything big that happens. Bye, everybody.